An expensive white car slowly drove up to a tall, shining glass hotel in Changchun. The hotel was shining with evening lights. It seemed that some significant event was planned. The girl in the car was worried. She was trying to convey something to the guy lounging in the back seat. He was clearly in an excellent mood. He listened to his companion with half an ear. She was already ready to get out of the car when she reminded the guy that today, at her birthday, the guy risks finding himself in a sticky situation, and he better listen to her more carefully. I must say that this young lady was very pretty. Despite her evening dress, she looked worried and anxious because her companion did not listen to her at all, despite the fact that they had been married for 5 years. Song Yan decided to give her husband Chu Chung some money so that he could hide from Changchun City for a while. But when she turned around to check if her husband was listening, she was sad to see that he was already snoring in the back seat. Song Yan became even more upset. She got out of the car, where the family's butler, Song Ru-hai, helped her open the door. He said that her father had been waiting for her for a long time. She knew this very well, but it seemed that on her own birthday she would have to appear alone, because her husband was now sleeping in the car. Meanwhile, the paparazzi immediately noticed Song Yan and hurried to grab their cameras and start taking pictures frantically, so that in the morning articles appeared that celebrities from all walks of life were invited to young Miss Song Jia-san's birthday party. The girl really looked stunning in her cream dress with a deep neckline. Journalists, however, noticed a guy sleeping inside. According to rumors, this was the husband of the young lady, and he was a klutz and a fool. Everyone could only wonder how such a beauty could stay with such a worthless man. Chu Cheng was snoring in the back seat and didn't seem to hear anything. Meanwhile, people did not stop gossiping and throwing mud at him. A magical light illuminated the jade pendant with an oriental symbol that hung on Chu Cheng's neck. He seemed to come to his senses when people started gossiping about his master. The hotel corridor was no less fashionable than the foyer. Behind the closed doors of one of the apartments, there was a muffled conversation. It was about the difficult 5 years of the Song family. The father of the Song Xiangyang family was inside. In his exclusive suit with a frilly bow tie and a glass of wine, he ranted about his careless son-in-law Chu Chen, although, despite everything, he was still lucky. In the room were both his daughter Song Yan and his personal Taoist Zhang Yungo. He knew that it was only through luck that the Song family was able to come back from the dead in these 5 years. Only today, when the hour of darkness comes, Chu Cheng's luck will turn away, and then he and Song Yan are obliged to divorce so as not to attract trouble to their family. Song Yan silently listened to these arguments from her father and his assistant. She knew about the state of affairs, but she could not accept the thought of divorce. The father encouraged his daughter, because it was because of him that she had to endure his careless son-in-law for all these 5 years. Song Yan was still trying to protect Chu Cheng. He could have simply been let go rather than playing such games, but her father categorically refused, saying that all this was being done for her own good. Today will come the very day when they will disgracefully expel Chu Cheng from their family, where he has already stayed for 5 years. And this must certainly happen at a party in front of the whole society. Moreover, it seems that Song Yan will not have to be alone for long, since Mr. Ye from the imperial court is interested in her. Song Yan, not without disgust, guessed who she was talking about. In the largest family in the city, Ye Xiaohuan shone with his youth and charisma. If only their family could become related to this family, it would be a triumph. Another shiny, expensive car arrived at the entrance to the hotel. The lively crowd recognized the newly arrived guest of honor, a young master from the imperial court. Journalists, paparazzi, and just onlookers could not get enough of the handsome young man in a fashionable coat. He casually walked towards the entrance of the hotel to the approving exclamations of female fans. Ye's eyes did not hide the fact that in Song Yan's car, someone was sleeping in the back seat, and he hastened to find out who it was. The helpful manager, Pan, reported to Ye that this was the same fool son-in-law of the Song family. Ye immediately had a malicious grin on his face, and he wished that this guy would be woken up for him. The manager and the security guard rudely began to push the young man through the open car window, demanding that he come to his senses. Only it was in vain because instead of waking up, he fell backwards on the seat and snored even more heavily. They openly made fun of him, inviting Ye Xiao to look at this drunken non-entity. Ye Xiao happily abandoned his attempts to talk with Chu Cheng, heading towards the entrance of the hotel. However, the next moment, a small green pebble with an oriental symbol flew towards Ye Xiao's head. From the dark interior of the car, Chu Cheng's rather sober voice came to Ye. He woke up. Opening the car door and sitting in a rather cheeky pose, Chu Cheng asked Ye Xiao what he needed. Ye Xiao was surrounded by observers who saw a pebble fly at him from Chu Cheng. Everyone was amazed how he could afford this. But Ye Xiao's challenge was accepted, and he stopped his defenders. Ye Xiao chose a different path of revenge, to make fun of Chu Cheng in the presence of witnesses who fully supported his bullying of the not entirely sober guy in the car. According to them, it turned out that Chu Cheng was incapable of even taking care of himself, let alone having any opinion of his own in the Song family. He very confidently invaded Chu Cheng's borders and, not without pleasure, told him about his family's plans to divorce him from Song Yan that evening. And when she becomes free, Ye Xiao will immediately make her his woman. He openly mocked the drunken Chu Cheng, who listened expectantly to this narcissistic rich man. Chu Cheng remained sitting in the dark interior of the car, and Ye Xiao's suckers took him away because there was no point in wasting time on a drunken idiot. Chu Cheng heard and understood everything perfectly. Only he was not to blame for the fact that everyone considered him a fool. Because then, 5 years ago, when he began to practice the art of magic, he had no idea that he would become famous for this, but would not be able to keep the soul suppressor under control, and in response he will strangle his own soul and strength. And then 5 years ago, fate, or just an accident, brought Chu Cheng and Song Yan together when she hit him with her car. They got married then, but who knew that they would treat him like garbage and want to divorce him from his wife and make him the laughing stock of the whole city? It seems that only Song Yan had a good opinion of him and was ready to protect him from her relatives. Song Yan truly always stood up for Chu Cheng in front of her father. She also defended him in front of everyone who tried to hurt Chu Cheng. He really got a good wife. Chu Cheng replayed all these thoughts in his head and finally made an internal decision not to give up. It seems that now the time has come for him to protect Song Yan, and he abruptly got out of the car, confidently walking towards the entrance to the party at the hotel. Before Chu Cheng could enter, a familiar, arrogant voice immediately called out to him. There stood this arrogant man, Song Yan's cousin, Song Qingpeng. As always, he did not miss the opportunity to offend Chu Cheng. With an arrogant grin, he glared at Chu Cheng, holding another girl by the arm and sipping cognac. It turns out he was looking for him. Song Qingpeng was one of that breed of people who did inappropriate things and did not feel any remorse. For 5 years, he beat Chu Cheng mercilessly and with impunity and humiliated him in every possible way. And this time, it seems, he also decided not to stop at verbal insults. He mockingly spat into a glass of cognac and offered the spoiled drink to Chu Cheng in front of everyone, ordering him to drink it as an apology for his lateness. For this act, Song Qingpeng nobly promised not to beat him. The people around were rejoicing at what they were about to see. Chu Cheng, despite everything, still accepted a glass from this arrogant guy. And it might seem that he was ready to humiliate himself in front of everyone. Song Qingpeng poked him in the chest with his finger, almost in a friendly manner, and began to urge Chu Cheng to drink it, or he would have to drink it himself. People were delighted, watching the pitiful, drunken young man who was about to sink even lower than his dignity. Song Qingpeng reveled in his invention and wondered why he had not come up with something similar for his relative before. The girls nearby didn't hold back either. Suddenly, Chu Cheng's hand grabbed the stunned Song Qingpeng's face. Chu Cheng, with a sharp gesture, forced him to kneel, and with his other hand, he poured the spoiled cognac straight down the throat of his offender, to the surprise of everyone around him. The guests were shocked, and Song Qingpeng choked on his cognac and spit in front of everyone, squeezed by Chu Cheng's unexpectedly strong hand. With the same sharp movement, Chu Cheng simply pushed him aside, and Song Qingpeng fell to the floor, choking and coughing. The crowd was indignant. Everyone thought that Chu Cheng, like a fool, would not take advantage of Song Qingpeng's offer to drink his spoiled drink himself in order to justify his society's attitude towards him. It turned out that the crowd was wrong. Song Qingpeng crawled humiliated on the floor and tried to cough up his own spit. To say that he was angry with Chu Cheng was an understatement. Song Qingpeng slowly stood up and began to take out a knife from under his jacket, threatening to take revenge on Chu Cheng for his monstrous shame in front of all the celebrities. He angrily rushed at Chu Cheng, holding the knife in front of him, but someone's hand suddenly stopped him, grabbing him by the wrist with a knife. It was the butler Song Ruhai who advised the young man to think before embarrassing himself further in front of so many high-ranking officials of the city. The family's reputation is at risk. Song Qingpeng, without letting go of Chu Cheng's bestial gaze, still wanted to achieve his goal, because he was now publicly humiliated and smeared. But the prudent butler whispered in Song Qingpeng's ear that he should leave him behind and give him up to be torn to pieces by the hands of his father, because he was just waiting for Chu Cheng at his place. And he himself will be able to take revenge on the offender a little later. Unexpectedly, Song Qingpeng pretended to calm down and decided to hide out of sight. Passing by Chu Cheng, he deliberately pushed him on the shoulder, growling some ridiculous apologies. The butler asked Chu Cheng to follow him because the head of the family was already expecting him. Song Qingpeng was looking forward to Chu Cheng's collapse, because today he was just lucky, but he would soon get even with him. The butler and Chu Cheng reached the office. Song Ruhai opened the heavy door for him. Everyone was already at the large table. The father of the family, the mother of the family, Song Yan herself, brothers, sisters, and other sons-in-law. They seemed to be watching with interest the behavior of Chu Cheng, who entered. Song Xiangyang invited the guest to sit down. Chu Cheng walked to the empty seat, not believing that all these 5 years he had simply stood at the door, not taking any part in the family's affairs, and today he was even awarded a seat. Chu Cheng sat quietly, looking down, and Song Xiangyang began his speech by saying that all these 5 years, their family had risen from the dead thanks to the energy of Chu Cheng. But this could no longer continue, because his personal Taoist predicted something. Chu Cheng's luck would last until tonight at the most, so the family decided to dissolve the marriage between Song Yan and Chu Cheng. Otherwise, Chu Cheng would be a bad influence on all of them. The family's first son-in-law, Lin Xinping, foolishly teased Chu Cheng, who was bending over the divorce document that he could hardly read. The second son-in-law of the family, Zhou Jian, also mockingly noted that Chu Cheng is unlikely to be able to hold even a pen in his hands. Chu Cheng did not particularly succumb to their provocations. In front of him now lay the concocted divorce document. This means that they really decided to get rid of him, throwing him out of the family. Chu Cheng was stopped by only one thing. He was only worried about the opinion of Song Yan, who was sitting opposite him at the table, sadly hiding her face. He didn't care about Song Jian's family members. He would still have the opportunity to kick all their asses. Song Yan could not bear the stupid ridicule of her husband. She once again shouted at the offenders, protecting Chu Cheng from nasty attacks. The two sons-in-law only chuckled arrogantly, mocking the ardor with which she defended her klutz husband. Chu Cheng internally perked up, because if Song Yan was at the same time with him, then this document would have no force. But it was difficult to tell from Song Yan's dejected face how determined she was to fight for their marriage. If she did sign the document, Chu Cheng would immediately disappear. The butler quietly approached the father of the family and said that a certain high-ranking guest wanted to meet with him. When Song Xiangyang heard the name of this guest, his eyes immediately sparkled with happiness, because it was none other than the representative of the powerful Xia family from Yangcheng, the third young master Xia. This was unspeakable luck for Song Xiangyang. However, the young master had one request during the negotiations. He wanted the most famous son-in-law from the Song family to also attend. The first and second sons-in-law, having heard the news out of the corner of their ears, immediately began vying with each other to propose their candidacies, at the same time belittling each other. Song Xiangyang headed for the exit, taking with him the satisfied first son-in-law of the family, Lin Xinping, who smugly showed off in front of the second son-in-law. The only son of the Song family, Song Chu, asked his mother Su Yuexian what family his father was talking about, because he had not heard anything about the Xia of Yangcheng. Su Yuexian was also pleased with the upcoming meeting and explained to her son that this family was much more powerful than the Ye Shaowen family. According to her, it turned out that the Xia family was new to the city, but everyone who was not too lazy wanted to get connections with her. And if someone succeeds, then unprecedented success and almost immortality await them. The mother was frank with Song Yan, pushing her to think, because the eldest son-in-law, her sister's husband, had the opportunity to cooperate with the Xia family itself. And now it was up to Song Yan how she would fight for the Ye Shao Huan family. Chu Cheng sat listening to all this and was simply amazed at the vileness of the Song family. They were ready to sell their own daughter for profit. Quite loud conversations were heard outside the door. The person outside the door insisted on meeting the famous son-in-law of the Song family, who had just started a fight at the party. Behind him could be heard the quick words of Song Xiangyang, who made excuses that there were no fighters in their family. The door opened wide, and a stately young man in an expensive white coat appeared on the threshold. The Song family immediately turned their full attention to him. The mother of the family was at first confused, and then a fierce fire lit up in her eyes, and she immediately ordered the entire family to stand up and respectfully greet the guest, because it was Zia himself. So Yuexian immediately began to be nice and grovel before the young man, rejoicing that he had come apparently for their second son-in-law, Zhou Jiang. However, the young master casually pushed the reptile away from him to everyone's surprise. Instead, Xia approached the seated Chu Cheng, who did not jump up from his seat to bow to Xia. Xia noted that he was the one he was looking for because he saw Chu Cheng beat up a man in the hall. To the surprise of the entire Song family, Xia extended his hand to Chu Cheng for greeting, introducing himself by his full name, Xia Bei, from the Xia family of Yangcheng. He was delighted with Chu Cheng's action and suggested that they talk privately. Song Xiangyang and Ling Xinping were simply taken aback by such a sight. Chu Cheng smiled very casually and agreed to the meeting, because he didn't have anything to do tomorrow anyway. He also introduced himself by his name. The guys shook hands, cementing the agreement to meet tomorrow. Father and mother were in complete shock and did not believe their eyes. Xia was looking for a meeting with Chu Cheng. No one understood why this fool Chu Cheng Xia. Even in the hotel corridor, one could hear surprised exclamations of misunderstanding of the situation. Chu Cheng sat smugly in a chair, and behind him there was nothing but talk. Someone saw that he beat Song Qingpeng, and that seems to be why Xia wanted to meet him. Xia casually said goodbye and began to leave the room. Song Xiangyang was seriously afraid for the reputation of their family, because if Chu Cheng decided to fight with Xia tomorrow, then they would be finished. Song Xiangyang hurried to his daughter and almost shouted to insist that she sign the divorce document. The mother, in the same melodious voice, whispered in her daughter's ear so that she would sign the agreement, because everyone would benefit from this. They put pressure on poor Song Yan, manipulating the well-being of the family under the guise of good intentions. She had to take hold of the pen and bent over the document. The pen in Song Yan's hand trembled over the paper sheet. She struggled with two feelings, a sense of duty to her family and feelings for Chu Cheng. Everything was too unfair to him, because he gave their family 5 years of his life. Chu Cheng was intensely watching what his wife would do, and since she finally took up the hand, then most likely she chose the family. However, in the blink of an eye, Song Yan crossed out the divorce document with a stroke of ink that spilled all over the sheet. Song Yan exploded with indignation. She suddenly jumped to her feet and accused her family of being extremely unfair to Chu Cheng, who had helped their family rise in these 5 years, and now, having used him, they just wanted to get rid of him. The father raged with indignation. He could not believe his daughter's willfulness. Song Yan could no longer stop and began to speak out about their vile plans for her actual sale to the Yi clan. She did not want and will not be an instrument to achieve their goals. The mother approached her daughter menacingly in an attempt to calm her down. The father loudly slammed the table, calling the crying Song Yan a rebel and threatening her with violence if she did not sign the divorce document immediately. The document lying in front of Chu Cheng also ordered him to live long. He shattered into small pieces in front of the angry father of the family. Chu Cheng boldly threw the pieces of the torn document at Song Xiangyang, threatening him in his casual manner to leave Song Yan alone since she did not want to sign the document. Here the sons-in-law have already intervened. They were amazed at Chu Cheng's audacity and did not believe that he could tear up the divorce document. Chu Cheng controlled himself and reminded those screaming monkeys that Mr. Xia wanted to talk about cooperation with him and not with them. And he continued, turning to the astonished Song Xiangyang, that if they did not give up with their stupid ultimatum for divorce from Song Yan, he would tell Mr. Xia about it tomorrow. He was confident in his words. Song Xiangyang was amazed that Chu Cheng was actually threatening him now. What was surprising was that Chu Cheng's words could be clearly understood for a long time. Chu Cheng added that if something happened, he would take the entire blame for what happened without involving the Song family. Lin Xinping also rubbed Chu Cheng's nose in the face, because if tomorrow troubles happen through his fault with Mr. Xia, then who will be responsible for them? At this moment, everyone turned their attention to the person who entered the door. It was Ye Xiao, and he was determined to take control of the situation if Chu Cheng caused trouble with Mr. Xia tomorrow. He promised to prove that the Song family had nothing to do with Chu Cheng. Lin Xinping couldn't believe that Song Xiangyang promised Mr. Xia a meeting with that fool Chu Cheng. But what could Song Xiangyang do? In the office, some time later, Song Xiangyang and Ye Xiao were negotiating about tomorrow. Song Xiangyang was dejected. He did not expect anything positive from this meeting for their family, because Chu Cheng was famous for his idiotic antics. Ye Xiao reassured him, because not only had his family already cooperated with the Xia family on the issue of tomorrow's meeting, but the young master had blurted out about this meeting while drunk. Ye Xiao, like a snake, temptingly poured his sweet words into Song Yan's ears. He suggested that she think about her decision a little and give her and Chu Cheng the opportunity to fairly compete in cooperation with the Xia family. Ye Xiao had big plans for Song Yan, so he wanted to get rid of the annoying Chu Cheng by all means. He was confident. However, just in case, it was necessary to play it safe. And then he and Song Xiangyang entered into an agreement. Song Xiangyang whispered in the faithful butler's ear to ensure that Chu Cheng was sent back to his normal state. Song Yan followed Chu Cheng and was pleasantly surprised that he so decisively took the blow of her family upon himself. He saved her. But Chu Cheng just waved it off, because he already owed her for all these years. Ruhai appeared on their way and reminded them that it was already late, and it was time for Mrs. Song Yan to go home. Song Yan in turn asked Ruhai to take care of Chu Chen and let him rest. There were conversations in the ladies' room. Rumors that the careless son-in-law of the Song family had beaten Song Qingpeng were discussed with liveliness. Two girls were fixing their makeup and lively discussing today's situation at the party. One of them saw Song Qingpeng gathering a group of people. Song Yan, who happened to be in the same place, unwittingly overheard the girls' conversations. It seemed like her cousin was plotting revenge against Chu Cheng. She immediately frantically began to dial the butler to warn him. Back entrance to the hotel parking lot. Song Ruhai and Chu Cheng had just left the hotel and were heading to the parking lot. Suddenly, the butler's phone rang, and Madame Song Yan anxiously asked where they were and whether Song Qingpeng was nearby. Song Yan confusedly began to convey the words heard in the ladies' room. The butler responded reservedly, trying to calm his mistress because Chu Cheng was with him. The butler assured her that he would see Chu Cheng home safe and sound. However, they began to go out into the dark parking lot, where they were already expected. But the butler cynically noted that Chu Cheng's safety was his duty. Ruhai and Song Yan said goodbye kindly. Ruhai immediately cynically handed over Chu Cheng to them. Song Qingpeng treacherously thanked Ruhai and asked him to wait outside. Ruhai hurried to quietly disappear from the parking lot. Song Xiangyang's order was simple. Butler Ruhan simply needed to prevent Chu Cheng from meeting Mr. Xia tomorrow. He could act for sure, and in all acceptable ways. Song Qingpeng waved the rebar in his hand threateningly in front of Chu Cheng. He raised the piece of iron higher and began to advance. If Chu Cheng thought that Qingpeng would so easily forgive him for today's disgrace, then he was deeply mistaken. His eyes instantly became bloodshot with rage, and he rushed at Chu Cheng with threats to prove to him that blood is thicker than water. Chu Cheng froze in readiness for reprisals. Meanwhile, there was a butler lurking behind the door, guarding the entrance so that no one would accidentally wander into the parking lot and see the bloody mess that was supposed to remain from Chu Cheng. The butler reminded those through the doors that first of all they should break his legs, but not touch his face, because the head might still need his services. The butler fell silent and clung to the door. For some reason, instead of the expected sounds of carnage, it was quiet there. He resolutely went inside, and to his great amazement, he saw the entire gang lying on the floor with beatings of varying degrees of severity. The hotel corridor hall was brightly illuminated by lamps. Chu Cheng, as if nothing had happened, walked along the corridor, slightly stretching his shoulder. Not without joy, he noted that for the first time since descending from the mountain, he used the skills of the Nine Xuan clan. It's a pity that these skills had to be used in battle with such scum. However, Chu Cheng did not rejoice for long. Looks like the fun has just begun. Some people appeared in the hall. The guy with the tousled haircut and his bald partner with a terribly burned face had heard about the party. Rumor had it that Song Yan was going to divorce the fool Chu Cheng and then go straight to bed with their brother Ye Xiao. They mockingly pointed out that since Chu Cheng was an idiot, it was very possible that Song Yan was still pure. People at the party immediately noticed these unknown guys of incomprehensible appearance. Chu Cheng heard everything perfectly and resolutely challenged them to explain themselves. The words of this guy with a haircut hurt Chu Cheng, and he immediately demanded an apology to his wife. The guy with the hair and the bald man with burns stopped, assessing him, and realized that the fool they were just talking about was standing in front of them. The guy with the hairstyle immediately burst into laughter, pointing his finger in Chu Cheng's direction, because it was funny that they were remembering him a second ago. And here he is in front of them. He arrogantly pointed his finger at the chest of the silent Chu Cheng, and mockingly added that they would take care of him, and his brother Ye Xiao would approach Song Yan with an unequivocal proposal. Just before he had time to enjoy his vile triumph, a blow to his face immediately came from Chu Cheng. The guy with the hair was no longer so brave, because from the force of the blow he was thrown to the floor, blood gushed from his nose, and one of his teeth was missing. Chu Cheng went on a rampage, standing in a fighting stance, ready to beat up anyone who said something about his wife. The crowd parted. The fool Chu Cheng was able to knock out the young master Rong Dong from the wrong group with one blow. Dong recovered a little. He could not believe that Chu Cheng dared to hit him. Rong Dong covered his bleeding mouth with his hand. Apparently it dawned on him that his front tooth was gone. His eyes immediately sparkled with a fierce fire of rage. Manager Pan clutched his head in horror because Rong Dong was the master of one of the most inconspicuous groups, owned a boxing gym, and now some Chu Cheng dared to beat him. Dong was not going to retreat. The price of humiliation was too high. He swung, grinning threateningly at Chu Cheng. The bald man with the burned face chanted for their boss to finish him off, and the crowd followed him. Dong, of course, attacked with a retaliatory blow, but Chu Cheng's foot stopped him. The crowd gasped in amazement, standing in shock at such a turn. Dong Rong began to sweat from a stunning blow to the stomach. In a furious state, he rushed towards his comrades and shouted to attack. The bald man with a burned face was just waiting for a command from his boss, so he was the first to rush into the attack, flashing his brass knuckles. The rest of the gang rushed after him, some with wood, some with a bat, some with a stick. Ruhan found Qingpeng on the ground, completely beaten, and tried to raise him to his feet. Ruhan did not understand what could have happened, who defeated them. But Qingpeng, holding his broken head, said that Chu Cheng did it all. However, how could he do this alone? Qingpeng began to remember that they all stood surrounding Chu Cheng, who seemed not to be preparing to defend himself at all. Then he made some kind of magical gesture with his fingers, uttering some kind of spell, as if using black magic. He made the opponents attack each other instead of dealing with him. While telling Ruhan this unprecedented story, they were suddenly distracted by some sound. Meanwhile, Dun was lying there, beaten by his own henchmen. They stood and wondered how they themselves could attack their own boss. The fighters stood in amazement and did not understand because they were attacking Chu Cheng. Chu Cheng's foot confidently and powerfully stepped on the lying Dong. Chu Cheng, with his usual confident calm, ordered the fighters not to approach. Otherwise, he could not guarantee how many more bones their leader would have broken. Dong Rong, bleeding, still tried to threaten Chu Cheng from the floor that he was the young master of the Rong family. Only Chu Cheng had all his threats in one place, because it was Dong who was in a disadvantageous position, or more precisely, under Chu Cheng's foot. He only wanted one thing from Dong, to apologize for his vile words to Song Yan. Otherwise, something worse awaited him than lying on the floor with a broken face. Dong was crushed to the floor, his teeth were crumbling from anger, and he, being pinned down by the enemy, did not understand how this fool could defeat him and why he was attacked in Ye Xiao's territory. Chu Cheng seemed to Dong to be somehow demonically huge, demanding the almost impossible from him. It looks like it was worth putting more pressure on the intractable Dun. He couldn't stand it and, bawling like a little child, drooling bloodily, yelled an apology towards Song Yan. It seems that everyone was dumbfounded by everything that was happening. Chu Cheng was pleased and removed his foot from the crushed and disgraced Dong. The manager froze in a daze. Today's defeat of Dong Rong will never be forgotten. Song Yan, who was watching what was happening, was instantly dumbfounded when she saw the trio on the horizon. Song Xiangyang, Ye Xiao and Ruhan entered the hall. The father said threateningly that Chu Cheng should have been at home. Ye Xiao approached the clearly stunned manager and asked what happened. Ye Xiao looked at the battlefield, and the manager quickly told how Dun was smashed to smithereens by Chu Cheng. The careless fighters tried to drag their beaten boss under the very mocking glances of Chu Cheng. Ye Xiao wondered, did the Song family really have some hidden power that protected Chu Cheng? Ye Xiao did not miss the opportunity to express his opinion to the equally stunned Song Xiangyang. Xiao slowly continued that the Song family must have been well aware that it was in a three-way cooperation. If we take Ye Xiao's family out of sight, there is a third party, and to Song Xiangyang's great despair, this third party was Rongdong's group. Xiao, still in a quiet, threatening tone, noted that now Rongdong's group would not want to cooperate because of the stupid trick of Song Xiangyang's fool son-in-law. He sadly understood that the Taoist master was right in predicting failure for his family. Chu Cheng finally began to harass the Song family. Song Xiangyang had no choice but to beg Rongdong's forgiveness with a humiliating smile for what happened through the fault of his son-in-law. He offered to compensate for the losses and assured that this was completely sincere. The defeated Dun turned angrily on him, saying through clenched teeth that he did not need any sincerity. Dong threatened Chu Cheng. He doesn't care who covers him. However, if he returns home safe and sound today, Dung will promise to do something. Dun will do the impossible. He will change his name backwards. Song Yan, discouraged by what had happened, could not understand what her husband had done to Dong. After all, he should have been accompanied by Ruhan and at home. Ye Xiao noted to himself that from now on, anyone in the city would want Chu Cheng dead even without his help. Xiao spread his arms and casually discounted Dong's injuries, adding that it was not worth ruining their tripartite agreement over this trifle. Only Dun hardly agreed with this formulation. Xiao turned his attention to Song Xiangyang. He hinted to him that since the banquet today turned out to be too noisy, then it was time to go home. Only he had to think carefully about who to take and who not to take with him in the car. Song Xiangyang listened to him attentively, being somewhat confused. But then it dawned on him where Ye Xiao was getting at, and he agreed with some encouragement. Song Xiangyang gave the order to his family to get into the car, but there are not enough seats in the car for everyone. He casually offered to take a taxi to Chu Cheng. Song Yan darted, looking in her father's direction in bewilderment. She protested furiously. Letting Chu Cheng go alone was tantamount to his death, but the father answered as if he did not understand where his daughter was going, and only discounted all her worries about Chu Cheng's safety. In addition, he became generous and decided to give his son-in-law one more day to become a member of the Song family. However, he gloatingly noted to himself that if Chu Cheng by some miracle gets home, he will personally meet him and give him a reception. Lin intervened and was a little sarcastic about Mr. Ye's generosity and conflict resolution skills. In addition, he offered Song Yan a condition. If Chu Cheng gets home on his own, he will personally pour him tea. Dong Rong perked up, and realizing where everything was going, agreed to continue the tripartite agreement. Xiao continued his diplomatic arguments. He would take Sun Yan with him tomorrow to negotiate with the Xia family to discuss cooperation, after which Song Xiangyang would be allowed to participate in this cooperation. Song Xiangyang burst into a grateful smile. Lin, leaving with the Song family for the car, finally told Chu Cheng that this might be the last time they would see each other. He ranted as he walked away about how this might be Chu Cheng's last chance to please Mr. Ye and finish everything quickly. Song Yan stood not far from Chu Cheng. She was completely disarmed by her family's action. They naturally expected their daughter to get into the car with them, but Song Yan resolutely grabbed Chu Cheng's hand and pulled him away. So far, they were still married, so she would go with her husband for his own safety. The father protested indignantly, because the plan to reprisal Chu Cheng was in jeopardy since the daughter decided to act as a human shield. But Xiao hastened to stop him. He noticed that it would be even more fun for him to deal with Chu Cheng, since Song Yan herself was going into his hands. Song Yan's white car drove along the night road between the trees, moving away from the hotel. Oddly enough, the driver was Song Yan's brother, Song Chu. Song Chu angrily snapped that he was not here of his own free will. His father ordered him to take them home. Otherwise, nothing would happen to Song Yan herself, because Chu Cheng was constantly surrounded by troubles. Song Yan herself understood that Chu Cheng had greatly angered Dong Rong, and his people would probably persecute him. Song Chu looked in the mirror at the back seat, where Chu Cheng was sitting, all humble and even somewhat dreamy, as if nothing had happened just half an hour ago, and angrily asked why Chu Cheng did this to Dong. He answered simply, he shouldn't have opened his dirty mouth. But Song Chu didn't understand. He had also ridiculed Chu Cheng for these 5 years, so why didn't he beat him? But Chu Cheng again briefly replied that he simply could not defeat him, which of course was an outright lie. Song Chu was indignant. He understood that reaching out to people is power. What is the point of being stupid and strong without power? Song Yan was still worried, and nothing had changed in her plans. She was determined to take Chu Chung out of the city. She sincerely asked him to be honest with her. Suddenly, cars behind them began to catch up at high speed. Another minute and they were hit in the trunk. Song Yan managed to grab the seat. Song Chu grabbed the steering wheel harder, trying to keep the car from a sharp push. Only Chu Chung didn't react at all. Song Yan demanded that Song Chu immediately break away from the chase and rush away from the city. He flatly refused, to Song Yan's wild surprise. Chu Chung intervened, asking him to let him out of the car. It is obvious that it was he who was interested in the chase. While he was inside, he endangered the lives of Song Yan and Song Chu with his presence. They will not fall behind if Chu Chung remains in the car. Chu Chung had already grabbed the door handle when Song Yan grabbed his hand, protesting fervently as he could not understand that he would be killed on the spot as soon as he left the car. The sharp maneuver of the car made Song Yan close her eyes tightly. The car skidded heavily while turning. Chu Chung came out, taking advantage of this, and slammed the door so that no one could get out of it. Finally, he ordered Song Chu not to let his sister leave the car and take care of her. And he casually added, moving away from the car, so that they would not forget to take money for the damaged trunk from those who hit them. Song Yan unsuccessfully protested to be released. The white car was immediately surrounded by 4 pursuit vehicles. They all thought that this fool Chu Chung had decided to leave his wife and run away, that this was an excellent opportunity to catch up with him and teach him a lesson. A bunch of people immediately appeared from the cars, among whom the main one was the same Dong Rong, already bandaged and stitched up after the recent beatings. He had a bat in his hands and ordered his thugs to chase after Chu Chung. He reveled in his power and ordered them to bring him alive because he personally wanted to deal with him. Ye Xiao was also present nearby, who had his own personal interest here. To where the gang's thugs ran, their cries could be heard calling to find him, to drag him here, forward. Song Yan banged on the car windows, watching as a pack of wolves chased her husband. She firmly ordered Song Chu to let her out of the car because she was ready to talk to Ye Xiao. He flatly refused because he did not believe that Dun's people would dare to attack them. Song Yan very persistently ordered Song Chu to go and help Chu Chung while she persuaded Ye Xiao. She added even more seriously that if he refused, she would renounce him as a brother forever. Song Chu gave up and got out of the car, heading out to find Chu Chung. A rather grinning Dong Rong and Ye Xiao were heading towards Song Yan. Song Yan stepped forward and asked what she needed to do to get them to leave Chu Chung alone. Dong mockingly replied that it is not necessary to sign a divorce document with ink. It can be done with a fingerprint. He forcefully continued that he was going to beat Chu Chung to death today and sign the divorce document with his fingerprint. However, if Song Yan wisely agreed to marry his brother Xiao today, then he would still allow Chu Chung to live as a disabled person. Song Yan protested heatedly and initially refused, because they were clearly taking advantage of their position. Ye Xiao stopped Song Yan's screams and abruptly interrupted her, grabbing her with crazy eyes. He gave the Song family a chance 3 times, and now she was responsible for everything. Song Yan listened in horror to the distraught Ye Xiao. Not only was he going to take her by force today, but he was also going to not let Chu Chung leave this meeting alive. Song Chu saw perfectly well what was happening between these 2 scoundrels and his sister. He cowardly hid behind a tree, eavesdropping on snippets of phrases. It was his duty to go out and defuse the situation. However, to his own shame, he became cowardly and trembled all over. He desperately wanted to live up to his reputation as a macho man, but his legs betrayed him. He self-sabotaged his cowardice, daring himself to go out and sort it out because his own sister was wronged. Suddenly, Chu Cheng called out to the shaking Song Chu. He, as if nothing had happened, appeared in front of the young man from the bushes, completely alive and unharmed. Song Chu was taken aback, because he was about to be chased by Dun's gang. However, Chu Chung casually noted that the bandits apparently got lost in the forest. Well, it was more important now to understand why the brave and tough, in his own words, Song Chu is standing here and doing nothing. Song Chu involuntarily fell on the tree stump and admitted that he could not bring himself to go and help his sister out, because if he got into a fight with Ye Xiao and Dun, the Song family would ruin such a fragile relationship with these 2. Chu Chung did not listen to these half-hearted excuses for long. He simply turned away from the pitiful Song Chu and walked towards them. Song Chu protested. He understood that now they would make a chop out of him, Did he really want to die that badly? Chu Cheng, leaving, asked Song Chu to remember his words. Song Chu did not understand what words would be discussed now. Chu Cheng practically appeared in front of Ye Xiao, Dun, and Song Yan, rolling up his sleeves. He gave Song Chu advice. If someone dared to offend someone who is dear to him, then he is obliged to respond in kind, no matter how strong the opponent is. Dong noticed Chu Cheng heading towards them. He greeted him humorously. Song Yan was amazed to see her husband here. Dong did not waste a second and rushed at Chu Cheng with a bat. This time he was more armed. Chu Cheng did not flinch and raised his fist with the intention of punishing the scoundrel. If someone calls himself a man, then he must act like a man. Song Yan broke free from Ye Xiao's tenacious grip because she was damn scared of what Dong could do to Chu Cheng now. However, it was Dong Run who was worth pitying because Chu Cheng's hand intercepted his blow, and Dong released both the bat and the remnants of at least some respect. Everyone gasped as they watched how easily Chu Cheng dealt with the trained bully. Dun flew away, raking the earth with his nose. Chu Cheng turned his gaze to Ye Xiao. Looks like he was next. Xiao, however, did not take Chu Cheng's threat seriously and only laughed arrogantly. Xiao trumped the fact that thanks to his trick, the Song family lost the opportunity to participate in the tripartite agreement, for which there was all hope, and so it was clear that the Song family could not rise without the help of the Yi family. Chu Cheng had angered the wrong group, and they would soon take proper measures. Therefore, the Song family will beg Ye Xiao for help, and once this happens, Ye Xiao will force Chu Cheng to kneel and divorce Song Yan, and out of his generosity, he will ask the wrong group to spare Chu Cheng. Ye Xiao just didn't have time to finish his fiery speeches and ghostly threats, because in an instant, Chu Cheng's fist flew into his face, forcing him to shut up and drool. Chu Cheng just thought that this piece of trash would stop talking. Garbage should know its place. And Chu Cheng took hold of a trash can nearby and began to drag it to the side where the stunned Ye Xiao was lying. Ye Xiao crawled pitifully on the ground and began to beg not to do what Chu Cheng was going to do. Only he didn't listen, but abruptly put a green plastic trash container on his head, making a hole in the bottom with Ye Xiao's head. Ye Xiao passed out from the blow, or maybe from the realization that he was put in a trash can. Done. His body, immersed in a stinking tank, lay on the ground in a heap of garbage. Chu Cheng, not without disgust, stood with his foot on the tank in which Ye Xiao was located. Chu Cheng intended to do one more thing. Song Yan approached from behind, watching everything that happened in shock. She didn't understand why Chu Cheng leaned towards Ye Xiao and rummaged through his trouser pockets. She asked not to get into a fight, but now he has completely angered both families. Chu Cheng turned to Song Yan with a benevolent smile, handing her a wad of money for the damage caused to the car. And it wasn't a fight at all, but one-sided damage. Song Yan was still glad that she had been so mistaken about her husband all these 5 years, because now for the first time she saw how he got out of trouble on his own. Song Yan nevertheless came to her senses, sharply grabbed Chu Cheng by the hand and pulled him away from the scene of the fight. It was necessary to get out of here and as quickly as possible. Then Song Chu appeared, sitting and watching the unfolding events from the bushes. He hurried after them. Their car instantly started up and, with a squeal, spinning the tires, rushed away, leaving the bare-bottomed Ye Xiao lying unconscious in a pile of scraps. The car was driving along the evening highway. Song Yan was sincerely worried about Chu Cheng, who was carefree counting the wad of money taken from Ye Xiao. She asked him not to get into such troubles again. He seemed to casually promise her this. He suggested returning home. Song Chu yelled angrily from the driver's seat because he couldn't imagine how he could return home when the Ye family or Dong Rong group were waiting to finish him off. Even if they don't, Father Song himself will finish him off. Song Yan agreed with her brother. However, Chu Cheng judiciously noted that someone who was beaten by a fool would definitely not tell everyone left and right about it. Chu Cheng's words seemed to make sense. Chu Cheng was sure that the people of the wrong group would remain silent. This shame would die with them. Moreover, Chu Cheng could not disappear from the city for an equally important reason. He had a meeting with Mr. Xia tomorrow. Even if by some miracle they manage to take him out of town, he will still return, because he is a man of his word. Song Chu listened to his relative, who had acted like an idiot for 5 years, and did not believe. Did he suddenly have common sense? Song Chu also agreed that Chu Cheng should be returned home. Song Yan was also somewhat shocked by the changes that had happened to Chu Cheng, and she also agreed. The brother firmly stated that from now on he too would protect Chu Cheng from the family's attacks. Chu Cheng only mockingly thought that he was unlikely to need at least someone's protection. The car picked up speed and rushed home. Song Yan only asked her brother to call her father and say that they were fine and were going home. The rich mansion of the Song family stood under the night sky. Nobody slept despite the late hour. The entire Song family was sitting in the living room. Song Sanyang walked back and forth, also feeling anxious because his brother was coming to the elder of their clan, who reported to the elder about what Chu Cheng had done this evening. The father was in despair because for 5 years they lived relying on Chu Cheng's luck, and it was thanks to him that Song Sanyang became the head. However, today the elder was very dissatisfied. His brother can take his place. The eldest sister, Song Yun, and the middle daughter of the Songqing family exclaimed that if their brother succeeds, they will all come to an end. And this very well could have happened, because my uncle's business was going much better. Lin grabbed his head, because he realized that he could become the one who gets the worst. So it was all Chu Cheng's fault. Song Sanyang ordered everyone to be silent. Fortunately, Ye Xiao and the Dong group helped them deal with that fool Chu Cheng. And thanks to the three-way cooperation, their family will be able to stay afloat, so the elder can still agree to leave Song Sanyang as the head of the family. The sisters breathed a sigh of relief that the problem had been solved, at least with Chu Cheng. Lin basely hoped that the Dong group had given him a good beating because bloodthirsty reprisals were important to them. Song Sanyang's phone rang. It was Song Chu, and he and Song Yan are already on their way home, and they are also bringing Chu Cheng with them. Song Sanyang's breath caught and his eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. The eldest daughter saw the phone fall from the hands of her stunned father. Song Sanyang, almost in a state of shock, barely uttered Song Chu's words. The car just pulled up to the main entrance, and the entire Song family watched with wild surprise as the alive and unharmed Chu Cheng smiled at them through the glass of the car. All three of them got out of the car. Song Chu suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He froze abruptly and remembered his father's words that evening. Then, Song Sanyang sarcastically declared that if Chu Cheng appeared in front of the house this evening, he himself would personally come out to meet him and give him a reception. Song Chu immediately blamed Chu Cheng to himself for setting him up in front of his father like that, saying that they were all coming back, and this meant only one thing, that his father would have to disgrace himself in front of the whole family, meeting Chu Cheng on the threshold of his house. Song Chu realized that he had completely screwed up in front of his entire family. Song Yan and Chu Cheng were about to enter, but she noticed that her brother was sitting on the steps and shaking. The family went outside, contemplating Chu Cheng in front of them. Song Sanyang squeezed out the most fake and disgusting smile in the world as he welcomed his son-in-law home. Song Yan also seemed to remember her father's promises and froze. Song Chu simply watched as the world collapsed, but Chu Cheng understood everything perfectly and enjoyed every minute of his glory. Song Yan began to accuse Chu Cheng that he deliberately set everything up this way in order to see the collapse of his father. Chu Cheng mockingly turned to the contemptuous Lin, reminding him of his promise to treat Chu Cheng to tea when he returns home. Song Yan did not know what reaction to expect from her relatives. Song Chu simply could not believe his son-in-law's impudence. But Song Chu had to watch an almost surreal picture. Lin personally poured tea from the teapot to Chu Cheng. But how could this be, since he was the one who bullied Chu Cheng the most these 5 years? Lin served Chu Cheng his tea. Chu Cheng accepted a cup of tea from Lin's hands with undisguised triumph and poorly disguised sarcasm. Song Yan and Song Chu stood dumbfounded as they watched the scene of Lin's humiliation. Chu Cheng lounged in his chair like a proprietor and began to drink his tea, not without mockingly thanking Lin, calling him dear. What could Lin do if the head of the family himself welcomed Chu Cheng to his home? The father angrily asked Song Chu what Chu Cheng was doing here. When everyone left Chu Cheng, Ling and Zhou attacked the poor guy, accusing him of bringing Chu Cheng home. Song Yan spoke to the attackers. She stood up for her brother because it was not his fault that Chu Cheng returned safe and sound. Chu Cheng himself dealt with Dong and Ye Xiao's group. The father slammed his fist on the table in irritation, claiming that Song Yan was delusional because Chu Cheng could not deal with the crowd of Dong Rong. Song Chu sat shyly on his knees in front of his father, who was determined to punish his son for this offense. He ordered Song Ruhai to carry the whip from his office. The butler carried a tray with a whip past the idly sitting Chu Cheng. The father grabbed the whip and swung it at Song Chu, determined to teach his son a lesson. His hand suddenly hung in the air. It was Chu Chung who grabbed his hand with the whip. Chu Chung spoke directly to Song Sanyang, looking decisively into his eyes. Even a tiger doesn't eat its own children, and Song Sanyang was about to kill his own son. Song Sanyang was amazed at his assumption, and Song Yuexian's mother outragedly stated that this was just a punishment that was traditionally used in their family. There was no talk of murder. Ling and Zhou watched from the sidelines with jackal grins, and were glad that Chu Chung was completely out of his mind for trying to interfere with the laws of the Song family. Song Yan jumped up to Chu Chung, asking him to stop. Even Song Chu replied from the floor that he was grateful to Chu Chung for his attempt to save him. But these are the laws of the family. The father was annoyed by his son-in-law's impudence. He swung again, but this time at Chu Cheng. Again, Song Yan stood between her father and Chu Chung. But Song Sanyang ordered his daughter to move away and not shield Chu Chung, because he too had long deserved a spanking for his behavior. The whip clanged loudly on the floor without catching anyone. And suddenly, to the surprise of everyone present, everyone noted the strangeness of the whip. Needles flew out of it. Chu Chung managed to cover Song Yan. He continued to accuse Song Sanyang of wanting to kill his son, since the whip turned out to have needles. The whole family stared at the whip in puzzlement. The most frightened of them all, of course, turned out to be Song Chu, because it turned out that this was not just a beating with a whip, but murder, since the whip was covered in needles. Song Sanyang stood at a loss, because he did not know about the needles. Song Yuexian ran up to her son, checking him. It turned out that if Song Sanyang didn't do this, then who was trying to kill their son? Eyes turned to the frightened butler. He brought the whip, which means he is guilty. But he began to hotly justify himself that he had only brought a whip from Song Sanyang's office. Song Sanyang angrily yelled at Song Ruhai, because it turned out that he was accusing him of the fact that the whip was deadly. Did he really want to get money from the owner? Lin entered into an argument and made some assumptions. Why was the needle noticed by only one, Chu Chung? It turns out that he knew perfectly well that they were there, which means he could stick the whip with them. Chu Chung casually noted that they are all blind, because not only are the whips with needles, but they are also poisonous. Song Sanyang was taken aback. Is it really also poison? Lin pointed his finger at Chu Chung, because if he thought that one of them would try to kill Song Chu, then definitely not in front of everyone. The mother shed crocodile tears, for some reason assuring Song Chu that they would never do that, as if it was not an obvious fact for him. Song Sanyang ordered everyone to shut up. The first thing to do was to check whether there was poison in the needles. The father handed the whip to the butler and ordered him to take it to Master Ching Feng. Let him tell him whether the whip is poisonous. The butler returned very quickly and answered lamely that the whip was filled with poisoned needles. This meant one thing. Someone not only wanted to harm Song Chu, but also kill him with the hand of Song Sanyang. Ling, Zhou, and Song Yuexian unanimously began to accuse Chu Cheng of being the one who made the whip poisonous, and it was he who wanted to get rid of Song Chu. Even Song Yan was no longer sure that Chu Chung was not involved, and was ready, along with everyone else, to extract the truth from Chu Cheng by any means. But Chu Chung didn't seem to care at all about the prospect of being quartered by the Song family. Song Sanyang suddenly intervened and yelled for everyone to quiet down, because Chu Chung had nothing to do with it. Everyone stared in amazement at Song Sanyang, who was now doing the impossible. He was protecting his son-in-law. If Chu Chung had not stopped him, Song Chu would already be dead. There was no point in bickering anymore. It was not Chu Cheng. They could not believe that the head had just left this whole story behind. The dissatisfied family began to slowly disperse, glaring displeasedly in the direction of Chu Chung, who was simply enjoying this theater. Song Chu stopped everyone by turning to Chu Cheng. He fell to his knees in front of Chu Chung, thanking him for his life. The family gasped. Song Chu did not stop there, but began to ask Chu Cheng for forgiveness for how poorly he treated him all these 5 years. Chu Chung kindly lifted him from his knees and told him not to thank or apologize to him, since they were relatives. In Song Chu's room, the father began to apologize to his son. Song Chu, of course, was not angry with his father, because he understood perfectly well that it was someone else who wanted to harm their family in this way. But Song Sanyang had one more question. He could not understand how Chu Chung managed to return after meeting with the Dong group. He wanted his son to tell him the truth. Song Chu began his story mysteriously, hinting to his father that the truth would shock him. And therefore, he first needed to know whether his father had high blood pressure and whether his heart hurt. Song Sanyang stared at his son in shock. He angrily ordered Song Chu not to delay and tell the truth. Song Chu arrogantly said that, of course, he himself could have saved his sister, but Chu Cheng was ahead of him, dealing with Dong's group, and then knocking Dong himself down with a blow to the stomach. Song Sanyang's story began to shake. Song Chu enthusiastically continued to colorfully describe their meeting with Dong and Ye Xiao. Because Ye Xiao also got it. Because Chu Cheng put the latter in his place, calling him trash. And Song Chu told his father in all colors how Chu Cheng stuck Ye Xiao's head in the trash bin, thereby knocking him out. The father broke his glass in anger. Song Sanyang couldn't believe what his own son said. At the moment when Song Chu was telling all this, Song Sanyang's blood pressure not only rose, but his heart fluttered so much that it wasn't long before he had an attack. He yelled at Song Yan throughout the house. Was it true what Ye Xiao received from Chu Cheng? The mother was still shedding her tears and worried that now their tripartite cooperation would definitely end, since they had disgraced Ye Xiao. Song Yuexian decisively walked away from Song Yan's room to concoct a new divorce document. Song Yan had to sign it in Ye Xiao's presence, and maybe he would forgive them all. Song Yan tried to rebel. Chu Cheng appeared at the door with a sly smile, reassuring Song Yan that there was no need to worry, because this was just a three-way cooperation. Chu Cheng confidently stated that tomorrow, when he meets Mr. Xia, he will agree on a new cooperation, and they will not have to deal with the Ye Xiao family and the Dong group. Song Yan affectionately asked Chu Cheng about his sudden change in behavior. He was sick, and now he is healed? After all, who else knows better than her that, relatively speaking, before yesterday's events, Chu Cheng was an ordinary person. Chu Cheng himself admitted that in the last 5 years, this is the first time he feels great. Song Yan hurriedly asked, if this is the case, then perhaps he will remember where his home is. He thought deeply because since then he never remembered where he lived. Song Yan did not press this issue, although she noted that if she knew where Chu Cheng's house was, she would have sent him there so that at least someone would take care of him. But Chu Cheng suddenly tensed. He remembered something. The Wo family, which is located in the capital, is the #1 family in China. There are 9 amazing masters in this family, and Chu Cheng belongs to this family. This memory was like a bolt from the blue. Therefore, it seemed to Song Yan that it was some kind of ridiculous nonsense, and it seems that she was mistaken. Chu Cheng not only did not heal, but his mental illness progressed. He enthusiastically said something about how these masters, all powerful in heaven and on earth, taught him martial arts. Song Yan turned the conversation in a different direction because Chu Cheng was clearly carried away. She wondered what he had been feeling all these 5 years. Chu Cheng was genuinely surprised by this question. Song Yan quite sincerely thought that since he had to endure ridicule and humiliation from members of her own family all these years, Chu Cheng must be in pain because he simply had no one to talk to all this time. However, Chu Cheng was puzzled by the question. Chu Cheng suddenly blurted out to Song Yan's face that despite the fact that they had been married for 5 years and pretended to be the perfect couple for other people's eyes, she had never once taken care of him. Song Yan exploded with indignation. He boldly accused her of treating him unfairly, but apparently this idiot forgot how she protected him from everyone every time. She was very offended by such words from Chu Cheng, but he also condescendingly asked her not to be offended by the truth as he said, Song Yan showed him the door after being insulted. He resignedly left, because a conversation with an angry woman did not promise anything good. The sunny morning has come. Young Song Chu was already hard at work on the training pegs in the water with a lion mask in his hands. He was called out by Chu Cheng, who was standing down there in funny pajamas and brushing his teeth right on the riverbank. Song Chu deftly jumped down to meet him and explained that he was practicing the lion dance to do his family a favor. He began to explain further. Soon a celebration would be held in the city of Changcheng, and he, Song Chu, decided to show his lion dance and win the competition. Then, once they win, the Song family will no longer have to rely entirely on three-way cooperation. Chu Cheng, still brushing his teeth carefree, asked how this lion dance at the festival would help Song Chu get his family out of trouble. Song Chu just smiled and didn't understand why Chu Cheng was brushing his teeth right here and now. In fact, everything was somewhat more complicated. The festival was timed to coincide with the 80th birthday of the head of the Huang clan, the most powerful clan of Changcheng. This family was even more significant than just Ye Xiao himself. The lion dance was the chapter's favorite dance, so that might have made sense. So if you win the lion dance competition, you can win the favor of the head of Huang, and this may be the first step towards prosperity. But the competition will be great, because all the families of the city are preparing for the competition. And Song Chu, in truth, was not confident in his abilities, although he did not give up and practice dancing. Chu Cheng carefreely rinsed his mouth and at the same time reasoned that Song Chu was worrying in vain. He could barely make out what he was saying. The next moment, Chu Cheng suddenly spat upward with his water from his mouth. Much to Song Chu's great surprise, he aptly crushed the festive attribute for the lion dance into pieces. Song Chu asked in admiration and amazement whether Chu Cheng was a sharpshooter in a past life. But he just cleared his throat casually. Chu Cheng suggested that if Song Chu wins the competition, then Song Yan will be very happy for her brother. The Song family stood almost entirely in the courtyard of the mansion, dressed to the nines. Song Sanyang put on a ridiculous holiday bow to make it look like a wrapped gift. They were all dressed as if they were expecting the king's arrival. Workers hung holiday lanterns at the entrance to the house, and all this was only to anoint Ye Shao, who was supposed to arrive to them. Song Yan appeared from the house, dressed in ordinary casual clothes. She saw this whole masquerade. She was wondering why her father called her. Both parents immediately attacked Song Yan because of her clothes and ordered her to immediately go and change into something more appropriate for receiving such a dear guest as Ye Shao. Chu Cheng walked out of the house and declared that Song Yan did not have to dress up for Ye Shao. Chu Cheng looked no less casual, wearing shorts and a beach hat. He was sure that Ye Shao would not appear on the doorstep today. Mr. Xia will arrive alone, Song Sanyang annoyedly pointed at his idle attire. The mother rolled her eyes theatrically at her daughter and son-in-law's rebelliousness. Chu Cheng clearly wanted to anger Ye Shao with his appearance. Chu Cheng casually noted that it was they who should get rid of unnecessary pathos, since Ye Shao will not come, and Mr. Xia values freedom without unnecessary pretentiousness. Lin has already inserted his 2 cents here. He accused Chu Cheng of simply fooling them. According to him, Mr. E is a man of his word in the business world. If he said he would be here, then he will be. The family continued to slander. They said that Mr. Xia would not come, and that the issue with yesterday's story about the poisoned needles had not been resolved. Besides, since Chu Cheng is in good health, then let him finally sign the divorce document. Song Yan angrily remarked that the family was extremely ungrateful because it was Chu Cheng who saved Song Chu from death yesterday. And she decisively added, she will not accept Ye Shao. Immediately her sisters besieged her and began to force her with smiles, saying that she simply did not understand her benefit due to her young age. Chu Cheng stood at a distance and heard everything perfectly. He did not consider Ye Shao a real man. Ruhai appeared and began to impatiently shout at the top of his lungs that he saw Mr. Ye's limousine in the driveway. Song Sanyang perked up. It seems Ye Shao has forgiven them and is willing to cooperate. This means that they still had a chance to save the relationship. Ling and Zhou began to mock Chu Cheng. After all, it turned out that he was wrong in his predictions, and Ye Shao arrived after all. Chu Cheng was not so sure. The father ran out to the gate, urging the whole family to immediately prepare for the pompous meeting of Mr. Ye Shao. However, first a foot in beach shoes appeared from the limousine, and then everyone heard a voice that did not belong to Ye Shao. This man was surprised by the excessive elegance of the Song family. The visit was unofficial. The same simply dressed Xia Bei came out of the limousine. Moreover, he had half a watermelon in his hands, as if he was at some kind of party. He didn't understand why they dressed up so ostentatiously. The family froze in confusion as Xia stepped out of Ye Shao's limousine. The father immediately spoke flatteringly to Xia Bei, asking where Mr. Ye Shao was and why Xia came in his limousine. He noted to himself that Chu Cheng was right, and Xia also turned out to be dressed to match Chu Cheng. Xia Bei laughed and said that they were probably joking, because Ye Shao simply physically could not appear because his face was swollen. He had just left him, and he borrowed his limousine so that Xia could get to the Song family. Chu Cheng, not without pleasure, noted to his sons-in-law that he was right. Ye Shao turned out to be truly a man of his word in the sarcastic understanding of this meaning. Ruhai intervened and said that the elder had just called and wanted to see Mr. Xia in his old mansion. Well, it turned out that Song Cheng King was the real head of the Song family. He lived in an old mansion in Song territory. Xia's appearance alarmed even elder Song Cheng King. Chu Cheng's #1 goal was to win cooperation with the Xia family. Xia Bei and Chu Cheng greeted each other. Xia noted that Chu Cheng had a chic outfit for such an occasion. He asked to be taken to the elder's mansion, to the surprise of the entire Song family. The sons-in-law angrily began tearing off their welcome ribbons, as ridiculous as their suits on a hot summer day. They protested against the fact that it was Chu Cheng who took Xia to the elder, because if he also quarreled with the Xia family, then they would not be happy. Song Sanyang, with a heavy heart, stopped all bickering and said that Chu Cheng should be the one to accompany Mr. Xia. The head only sadly noted to himself that since Xia drove up in his car instead of Ye Xiao, it means that Ye Xiao harbored a grudge and was offended by the Song family. Trilateral cooperation was shaky. Seeing off the disappointed glance of the equally dressed Chu Cheng and Xia Bei, Song Sanyang hoped that Chu Cheng could earn the trust of the Xia family. The sons-in-law did not stop protesting against everything in the world, but Song Sanyang quickly shut them up. In the old mansion, the elder of the Song family was just preparing for the festival when he heard that Mr. Xia had come to visit them. Song Chongqing hurried to invite young Xia Bei to come with him. Xia replied that in the city there was only talk about the holiday in honor of Elder Huang, and every family was preparing for it in one way or another. In Song Chongqing's office, on the table there was a sheet of paper of considerable size with some inscriptions. The elder wondered if Xia usually wrote, but he hastened to praise himself and report that he is generally the god of the pen in Yangcheng. Xia Bei leaned over what was written and began to reason a little out of place about the fact that a powerful word was written here, carrying the energy of favorable impulses. But it seems that Song Chongqing saw through the young man, because an unworthy word was written here, and then he took and tore the piece of paper in front of his face. He began to crumple the piece of paper in disappointment. He himself could not manage to write anything even remotely appropriate to the occasion. Master Huang was looking for everyone who skillfully practiced the art of calligraphy for his holiday. Xia Bei realized that he had screwed up a little, because his calligraphy skills were not enough to compete with the masters in the genre of this art. Song Chongqing started from afar. Since, according to Xia Bei, he was a master in Yangcheng, the old man wanted to ask him something. Suddenly, he fell to his knees and prayerfully asked Xia Bei to do a calligraphy work to present at the Huang family ceremony. This could have saved their unfortunate family from the disasters that had befallen them recently. Xia Bei, in complete confusion, rushed to lift the old man from his knees, because Xia Bei simply was not sure that he could create something worthy for the competition. But the old man shed tears and began to beg him, because otherwise he would not get up from his knees and would lose all meaning in life. Xia Bei realized that he should have been more careful in his words and not praised himself. Now the old man thinks that he really is the god of calligraphy. He had no choice but to surrender to the old man crying on his knees and agree to write something for the Huang family. After these words, the old man immediately jumped to his knees, as if a couple of minutes ago he had not made himself look like a wreck, and immediately flatteringly began to thank Xia Bei for his generosity. Xia Bei understood perfectly well that the old man simply took advantage of him for his own purposes. He asked him to leave the office while he wrote, but asked the old man to call Chu Cheng to him. They needed to exchange a few words. To the amazement of the sons-in-law sitting in front of the elder's office, the old man came out and invited Chu Cheng specifically to come in and talk to Mr. Xia in private. Lin didn't believe the elder's words, and Zhou didn't understand where that idiot Chu Cheng got his luck. Chu Cheng entered the office, closing the door. Xia Bei was already looking forward to it. Xia Bei explained to Chu Cheng that he screwed up in front of the old man by presenting himself as a calligraphy master, but in the end he couldn't write anything worthwhile for the Huang family ceremony, and he needed help. Chu Cheng approached Xia Bei's written sheet, surprised that he was also interested in calligraphy. Only something incredible was happening on the sheet: splattered ink and an incomprehensible inscription. Chu Cheng was skeptical about Xia Bei's work. Chu Cheng offered to try to write something for the Huang holiday for him. Xia Bei was surprised. Was Chu Cheng really into calligraphy too? Chu Cheng assured that he was quite good at this, noting to himself that he actually studied with a true master of calligraphy. Xia Bei perked up and handed the brush and ink into Chu Cheng's hands. If he's that good, he could help him out. Chu Cheng began to master his skill, and Xia Bei mentally noted that he should not have been mistaken about Chu Cheng. After all, yesterday, when he saw that he was not stupid, he felt in him the potential of a great leader who simply hides his abilities and waits for a good moment. People with an aura like Chu Cheng's often have excellent skills, so it is not surprising that Chu Cheng can also be a master in calligraphy. The inscription was ready. Xiaobei would like to take a look. However, one could read on Xiaobei's disappointed face that this was not at all what he expected. His scribbles were even worse than what he himself, Xiaobei, wrote. On top of everything, the old man was already impatiently knocking on the door with an ardent desire to see what Master Xiaobei had written. If the elder sees the writings that Chu Cheng wrote, it will be a disaster. Xiaobei will lose her face, and with it, her respect. I had to quickly write something else and try to do it without typos. But suddenly, Chu Cheng opened the old man's door, respectfully inviting Song Chongqing to come in and look through the work. Xiaobei jumped on the spot because he did not have time to finish his work. The old man approached Xiaobei with curiosity and impatience and asked him to show him what he had done. Xiaobei began to sweat, hurriedly thinking what to do because the letter was not finished, and Chu Cheng had let him down so much by calling the old man ahead of time. With trembling hands, he hastened to hide the piece of paper behind his back. Xiaobei came up with a plan on how not to completely lose face. He just needed to change the pieces of paper unnoticed by the old man and carefully replace Chu Cheng's writing with his own. Even though it was written with typos, it was still much better than what Chu Cheng had done. It was only necessary not to make a mistake with the hand that contained his sheet. And Xiaobei confidently raised his hand with the leaf. The old man stared at the piece of paper with the hieroglyphs and froze. The confident smile gradually gave way to despair when Xiaobei realized that he had raised the wrong hand. The old man was now staring at Chu Cheng's letter. Xiaobei immediately died somewhere deep in his soul and began to imagine the most terrible pictures of what they would think of him now. The elder could not utter a word and only pointed his finger at the piece of paper, and suddenly tears of happiness appeared in the old man's eyes. He grabbed the piece of paper and began to admire that he had never seen better craftsmanship. The letter was really made by the god of the pen, Xiaobei. The latter could not believe such luck. Chu Cheng only silently and with pleasure watched the dramatic scene and the mood on the face of his new friend. The elder still could not tear himself away from what the so-called god of the pen wrote. He believed that Xiaobei was greatly underestimating his abilities, because the text of the letter accurately reflected the character of the person to whom this letter would be presented, Mr. Huang. Song Chongqing was confident that with such a level of calligraphy, Xiaobei had every chance of winning the writing competition at the Huang Festival. Xiaobei was more and more amazed every minute, because it seemed to him that his letter was much more artificial than what Chu Cheng wrote. Xiaobei cleared his throat and hastened to assure the old man that there was nothing special in his calligraphy, but he was glad that he liked the letter. Chu Cheng quietly remarked that if necessary, then let Xiaobei take all the laurels of the winner. The old man, holding this letter in his hands, noted that it was not signed in any way, and he would really like to see how a real master of the pen creates his masterpieces by signing the work. Xiaobei was once again drenched in sweat, holding the ink brush in his hand. If he starts writing now, Song Chongqing will immediately realize that it was not he who wrote the letter. And then Xiaobei decided to get out. He patted Chu Cheng on the shoulder and asked him to sign this sheet himself, because according to Xiaobei, if he signed, it would turn out that the letter would belong to him, and he would like to give this sheet of calligraphy to Chu Cheng. The old man was amazed. It turned out that Xiaobei was preparing this letter not for him for Huang's holiday, but for Chu Cheng. How so? Chu Cheng took up the pen, laid out the calligraphy on the table, and began to sign. The old man hurried to ask if Chu Cheng had proper calligraphy skills so as not to spoil this divine letter. He put his neat signature on the sheet. The old man, almost clutching his heart, noted that the guys seemed to be the same age, but their skills were still very different. And he was also sure that Xiaobei saved Chu Cheng's face by hiding his letter behind his back. What a noble act on his part. Xiaobei intervened. It was time to finish this scribbling and begin the real purpose of Xiaobei's visit. Negotiations on cooperation with the Song family. Grandfather Song began to escort Chu Cheng out the door, believing that Xiaobei meant negotiations with him, with the elder of the Song clan. Xiaobei immediately corrected the old man and ordered him to stop. He came to this house to negotiate with Chu Cheng, and the old man could wait outside the door for a couple of minutes. Song Chongqing blushed from misunderstanding. He hurriedly began to leave, amazed to himself that Xiaobei wanted to talk to Chu Cheng. although it was Song Chongqing who was the head of the Song clan. Outside the door, Sun Xiangyang immediately rushed to the old man to ask what was happening there. Song Chongqing, trembling almost reverently, informed the stunned Song Xiangyang that Xia Bei was negotiating with Chu Cheng, and that he himself really hoped that thanks to Chu Cheng, their family would always have good luck at the Huang ceremony. The whole family gasped at this news. Meanwhile, the guys sat comfortably in massive chairs and began. Xia Bei, first of all, thanked Chu Cheng for not letting him fall on his face. He appreciated it, but he couldn't just give him the opportunity to cooperate. He continued busily and laid all the cards on the table. Before coming to the Song family, he first visited the Yi family for negotiations. If Xia Bei chooses the Ye family to cooperate, then the Song family loses in all aspects. Chu Cheng understood this perfectly. The team was now at the Yi family's house, and if he didn't give them an answer before midnight, then they could automatically make an agreement with them. Therefore, the Song family only had a few minutes left to convince Xia Bei to cooperate with the Song family. To do this, he wanted to ask Chu Cheng a couple of questions. If Chu Cheng can give satisfactory answers, then Xia Bei will choose their family. And if Chu Cheng's answers do not suit Xia Bei, well, apparently the answer is obvious to the Song family. Son-in-law Ling, meanwhile, was indignant and hit the table with his fist, not understanding how this fool Chu Cheng could participate in such important negotiations. It was incomprehensible and annoying to him that Xia Bei was so interested in Chu Cheng that he agreed to negotiate only with him. If they managed to conquer Xia Bei in some unimaginable way, then their family would not be able to expel Chu Cheng from home. And if they do not drive him away, then the Taoist's prophecy will come true, and they will collapse. No. Song Xiangyang seems to be the only one who understood that Xia Bei chose Chu Cheng for negotiations for a reason. Although Xia Bei was considered a master without much success in his city, it was not because he was a slacker and frivolous in his affairs. Rumor has it that Xia Bei selects business partners in a very interesting way. He asks them strange questions, thus testing the person. And they also say that in all these years, no one has been able to answer him correctly. If only Xia Bei had agreed to negotiate with him, Song Xiangyang would have tried to turn the negotiations in his own direction, but the rude and unpredictable Chu Cheng was sitting there now. Everything could be expected. So Xia Bei's first question was, if Chu Cheng were deprived of merit in some major matter, what would Chu Cheng choose, dreams or patience? Chu Cheng, after thinking a little, replied that he would give fame and wealth to those who need them most. Xia Bei was satisfied with Chu Cheng's answer. Xia Bei continued and asked the following question. If Chu Cheng faces a choice, power on the one hand and a beloved woman on the other, what will he choose? Chu Cheng was not at a loss and answered, he will choose power over the world and sleep next to his beloved. Xia Bei liked the answer, but he would like Chu Cheng to apply it to real life. How would Chu Cheng be able to achieve both goals at the same time? Xia Bei insisted on a smart answer from Chu Cheng, otherwise their meeting would end right there. Song Xiangyang was sitting outside the door, trying to eavesdrop on the conversation between his interlocutors, when his phone rang. He raised the phone to his ear. It was Ye Xiao, and he sarcastically inquired about the progress of affairs from Song Xiangyang and his family. He assumed that Xia Bei was with them at the moment. So let Song Xiangyang not even hope to cooperate with the Xia family, because in fact, he has already agreed with the Ye family. Ye Xiao was going to officially sign the agreement soon. Mr. Xia went to the Song family just to complete formalities. Song Xiangyang couldn't believe this. Was the agreement already signed, and everything that's happening here is just a farce? Ye Xiao, with a snake-like smile, suggested that Song Xiangyang should begin to be afraid, because from now on their family would come to an end. And he hung up. Song Xiangyang nervously jumped up and began shouting into the phone, inviting Ye Xiao to discuss everything. His sons-in-law jumped up after him, realizing that things were bad. In desperate anger, he told them all that it turns out that the agreement had actually been concluded with the Yi family, and for their family, it was all over. We can only hope that they will have a chance to marry Song Yan to Mr. Ye Xiao. Song Xiangyang showed his son-in-law the door so that he could immediately run for a new divorce agreement, because it was necessary to marry Song Yan to Ye Xiao today. Song Yan clearly saw the despair and collapse of all her father's plans, so she understood that, most likely, she would face the fate of being sold to Ye Xiao. At this moment, friendly conversations between the guys were heard from the office. from which it could be judged that the negotiations ended successfully. Everyone immediately turned in their direction. Ye Xiao in his chair reveled in the prospect of future revenge on the Song family. But a group of people from the Xia family suddenly entered the office. Ye Xiao confidently assumed that they had just come to sign the agreement. However, the representative sharply surprised Ye Xiao with the news. Xia changed his mind about signing an agreement with Ye Xiao. According to the representative of the Xia side, Chu Cheng was able to give the required answer to the Xia test question. So from now on, the cooperation of the Xia family in Changcheng City will only be with the Song family. The guys, already hugging in a friendly manner, waddled out of the office, as if they weren't having a meeting there at all, but a party. Song Yan, her father and Lin dropped their jaws to the floor in amazement. Ye Xiao began to sweat from the shocking news. Song Sanyang, bowing with an astonished face, could not believe that Xia Bei chose to cooperate with their family. Not only that, he had never confirmed this before, but now he suddenly made up his mind, and even more than that, he chose Chu Cheng. Xia Bei was elated because Chu Cheng's answer was exactly what he wanted to hear. Then, during the negotiations, the question asked by Xia Bei turned out to be both simple and difficult for an ordinary person, but the outcome of the negotiations depended on this issue. Xia Bei was objectively interested in Chu Chen, but without this control question, he could not so easily entrust his family's affairs to him. Then, Chu Cheng turned to philosophy and told Xia Bei a metaphor about a whale and a bear if we transfer the situation in Xia Bei's question to real life. The metaphor said, "A person in this life needs to make a choice between two things. There is no other way." Xia Bei asked him to explain to him what his words meant. Chu Cheng stood up and decisively stated, "If he has the opportunity to take two good pieces, then why bother with anything at all, whether it is a bear or a whale?" No wonder Xia Bei was called the third master without success in Yancheng City. This could easily be changed, and Chu Cheng could help Xia Bei rise to the rank of first master of Tangnan if only he could agree to do business with him. Public opinion believes that it is impossible to combine incompatible things, such as fish and bear. However, Chu Cheng thought differently. Only whalefish and bear are not compatible. Xia Bei, already completely captivated by Chu Cheng's charisma, did not understand why he thought so. Everything was simple. Such transactions were considered illegal. Xia Bei laughed contentedly as his inquisitive mind enjoyed Chu Cheng's witty answers. Not only did he have ambitions to conquer this world, but he also had the common sense not to cross the line of what was permitted. When the Song family heard Chu Cheng's answer to Xia Bei's very interesting question, they were amazed. Ling expressed the idea that Xia Bei did not care at all that Chu Cheng seemed crazy for giving such arrogant answers to him. And Xia Bei said goodbye to Chu Cheng. He in turn was quite pleased that he satisfied Xia Bei's discerning taste. Song Sanyang stood with that pathetic divorce document in his hands, completely stunned by the prospects that now held promise for their family. The sons-in-law stood nearby, and all washed over Chu Cheng's bones, hoping that now he could go on his way, since the deal had been signed. Only Song Sanyang pointedly tore up the divorce document in front of their eyes and called them idiots. How did it not dawn on them until now that it was only thanks to Chu Cheng that they now had cooperation with the Xia family in their pocket? He angrily advised them to work on their brains. The sons-in-law swallowed their tongues, because it turns out that he was now supporting his son-in-law. Meanwhile, Ye Xiao was going crazy with frustration at what had happened. An expensive Chinese vase flew into the wall. He swept all the papers off the table and mercilessly criticized Song Sanyang with all the words in this world for leaving that fool Chu Cheng with him, and he was able to lure Xia Bei to his side. Enraged, he decided that enough was enough, and from that day on, he declared war on the Song family. It was Chang Cheng, not Yang Cheng, and his family meant something in this city. The Song family mansion sparkled in the light of the sun. Song Yan entered the room where Chu Cheng was in a good mood. She has already finished all conversations with her father and grandfather. They could be returning. The sons-in-law stood nearby and grinned their vile smiles. Even though this was a success on Chu Cheng's part, they wished him a quick fall, because they believed that he would soon relax again. Someone started shouting Chu Cheng's name. A man of Song Sanyang's and Song Qingpeng's age immediately rushed into the room. It turned out that this was Song Sanyang's younger brother, the second son of old man Song Changqing, and he demanded that Chu Cheng fall to his knees and apologize for cuffing his dear son Song Qingpeng. The sons-in-law immediately perked up, because retribution came as if by magic, because everyone knew that Song Muyang was not to be trifled with. The second son of old man Song Chang King was famous for his bad temper. Song Yan entered and began to explain that it was not Chu Cheng's fault. It was Song Qingpeng who started the fight. Uncle did not let up. He was sure that only Chu Cheng was to blame for everything, because not only did he beat Song Qingpeng, but he also got into a fight with Dong Rong's group. He had to be punished for all this, and he was sure that his older brother and father would support him in this. Chu Cheng stepped forward and meekly agreed to bear any punishment. He grinned arrogantly, promising that it would not be delayed. The sons-in-law came up with a vile proposal to Mr. Song. Offer to make a deal. And now they are unlikely to go against Chu Cheng. And they may well help their relative uncle in punishing Chu Cheng, allowing him to punish Chu Cheng himself, without interfering with Song Sanyang and the old man. Song Muyang snorted in their direction. Did they really think that brother and father would listen to Chu Cheng and not him, his brother and son? Moreover, he was sure that they would be on his side, because punishment was part of the tradition of their family. He did not believe that Chu Cheng was able to make a deal with Xia, so he brushed off his sons-in-law and hurried to his brother and father to talk to them about punishing Chu Cheng. But Song Sanyang and Song Chang King stunned Song Muyang with the answer. Chu Cheng really made a deal. His jaw dropped from such news. In addition, Song Sanyang knew very well the habits of Song Qingpeng, and most likely it was he who provoked Chu Cheng, who was simply defending his honor. Chu Cheng was a decent guy. Song Muyang was simply taken aback by such statements from his brother, and Song Sanyang had already pointed an edifying finger at his nephew and began to scold him for daring to touch Chu Cheng. Song Chang King added that it seems that Song Muyang did not raise his son well for him to behave like this. The world view of the usual life of the Song family collapsed in the eyes of Song Muyang and Song Qingpeng. They were the ones who were punished. Both, like naughty children, left Song Sanyang's house in complete confusion. The sons-in-law followed their allies with their eyes, realizing that they had to do as they advised them and not run to Song Sanyang. Chu Cheng suddenly turned sharply to his wife. It was important for him to know everything about Song Muyang. What did he need to know about him? And then Chu Cheng suddenly took Song Yan's hand, which greatly discouraged her, because they were only husband and wife on paper. Only Chu Cheng himself did not react to this at all. It seemed that holding his lawful wife's hand was the most natural state in the world. So Chu Cheng was curious. Had there been conflicts between Song Sanyang and Song Muyang recently? Song Yan, still feeling the strangeness of the situation, said that since early childhood, both her father and his brother had been sworn enemies. It turned out that if Song Chu had then died from poisonous needles, then the rule of the Song family would have passed into the hands of Song Muyang. Perhaps he was the culprit of the poisoned whip. The sisters, who stood nearby and watched everything, venomously noticed that Song Yan's condition was strange, as if she was in a fever. Maybe the problem was that this was the first time they had seen Chu Cheng holding his wife's hand, as is customary between people in a relationship. Song Qingpeng's luxurious villa. Every now and then one could hear curses and hysterics from the owner of the house. He seemed to fall into a childish state, stamping his feet and rummaging through some papers, tormented by the desire to take revenge for the shame of all of them. Song Qingpeng's younger brother, Song Qinghe, appeared in the room. He looked confident and seemed to know how to help his brother. Song Qingpeng joyfully jumped up to him and began to hug him. It turned out that Song Qinghe had returned from his training with the magicians. Now he knew some basics, which were enough to harm ordinary people. This should have been enough. Song Qinghe did not interfere in the family's affairs while Zhao Yongguo, the family's Taoist, was around. But now that he is not around, his hands are free. And in these very hands there was some kind of bag. And when he opened it, it turned out that there was a snake in the bag, and it was clearly poisonous. Song Qinghe was going to use everything against Chu Cheng soon. At Song's house, meanwhile, Song Yan realized the full scale of the project that Chu Cheng had taken on. She sat among a pile of papers and realized that she would have to do all the management work. Was he confident in his decision? They were just in the office, where Song Yan was sitting at the table in front of papers, and Chu Cheng in a stupid apron and with a janitor's scarf on his head was shaking dust from the walls. He believed in Song Yan, and besides, he was not very good at papers, but she could easily do it. He fulfilled his part of the obligations. He maintained trilateral cooperation for the Song family. The rest of the obligations were hers. Song Yan looked at all this and did not understand how he could do strange things like cleaning and washing, instead of thinking about more ambitious plans. Chu Cheng instantly turned purple with rage. Song Yan deliberately caught him in this to make him think. He did not turn to her, but began to leave the office, abruptly tearing off his apron and scarf. Song Yan achieved her goal. His reaction said that her words affected Chu Cheng. In the hall, a snake hissed and hung ominously on the chandelier. Chu Cheng, of course, noticed her and was surprised. An ordinary spiritual snake. They could have tried better if they wanted to harm him. Chu Cheng arrogantly thought that this was too small a move against him, the heir of the 9 masters. The snake began to rush at him, opening its terrible poisonous mouth with sharp, poisonous fangs. But he deftly grabbed her by the neck, twisting the reptile into a donut. Somehow lately, he has had an increase in the number of enemies. There was a knock on the door and said that Mrs. Song Yan had a visitor. Chu Cheng thought about the planted snake. Perhaps it was the work of Ye Xiao, quite in his style. Well, if he raised a stone at him, then he himself will suffer from it. He shouted towards the office where Song Yan was and invited her to come out and meet the guests who had arrived. In the courtyard of the Song mansion, Ye Xiao and Song Muyang were sitting at a massive table. For Song Muyang, this meeting brought an unexpected bonus. Ye Xiao transferred his side in the tripartite cooperation to Song Muyang. He, of course, was happy. Song Sanyang and Su Yuexian stood upset and watched Song Muyang's betrayal. Chu Cheng and Song Yan hurried to ask what was the matter. Well, it seems that Ye Xiao has chosen the best way to take revenge on the Song family for all his humiliation, to transfer his share of the deal to Song Sanyang's brother, right in front of the latter, to emphasize his contempt. And so it was. Ye Xiao sat with a smug smile and watched Song Sanyang's confused expression. Ye Xiao planned to casually greet Chu Cheng, and he did it with invention and mockery, standing right next to the trash can. Ye Xiao immediately remembered his humiliating stay in the trash bin thanks to Chu Cheng, and his breath caught in anger and indignation. Ye Xiao suddenly coughed in front of Song Muyang and said that he wanted to continue negotiations inside the house. But it seemed to Song Muyang that Ye Xiao deliberately planned to talk to him in the courtyard so that Song Sanyang could see them clearly. But he, without explaining anything and somehow strangely covering his face, hurried into the house, accompanied by the satisfied look of Chu Cheng. However, since the enemy himself came to his territory, and not alone, then let him take his so-called gift. And Chu Cheng pointed at the snake, ordering it to crawl back to mommy. The sons-in-law, mouths agape, watched what was happening between Ye Xiao and Song Muyang. They understood perfectly well that their uncle's business was flourishing, and now his participation in trilateral cooperation had also been added. It seems that Song Sanyang will soon lose his former advantage, but Chu Cheng cheerfully began to reassure them. Why worry if it was the Song family that would cooperate with the Xia family? And this was more important than any negotiations. But Chu Cheng did not foresee one thing. The Xia family is new to the city. Proper authority still needs to be gained, and it will be very, very difficult to resist the local families. But he did not lose heart, but decided to amuse everyone. He folded his fingers in some bizarre manner and made some kind of gesture only known to him. Screams were heard in the bushes in the yard not far from everyone. Immediately standing, Song Qingpeng and Song Qingye began to watch and wait for their triumph, gloatingly and conspiratorially. They took out their phone to immediately post everything online. However, to their great surprise, what they saw on the phone screen was not Chu Cheng at all. On the phone screen, Ye Xiao was writhing on the ground and screaming that a snake had bitten him on the ass. Their father was running after him like crazy, and it immediately went viral, showing the pathetic Ye Xiao in a bad light. Both brothers stared at the screen in bewilderment. A commotion began. Everyone could not understand why Ye Xiao was screaming in a voice that was not his own and writhing on the ground. There was a rumor that he had been bitten by a snake, and he demanded to call an ambulance. Song Qingpeng conspiratorially whispered in his brother's ear to do something, for example, neutralize the snake bite with some spell, because jokes are bad. But Song Qinghe flatly refused, because he did not know the spells for the antidote, and it was impossible to admit that it was him because the snake had bitten the wrong person. Chu Cheng heard their quiet conversations. Did one of them really know something? It turned out that it was Song Qinghe who had the power of the snake, and it was not Ye Xiao who threw the snake to Chu Cheng. Ye Xiao, meanwhile, was writhing in agony on the ground, Everyone was fussing over him, but it seemed that things were very bad. Chu Cheng walked up to them, took Ye Xiao's shoes from the foot on which the snake bit him, and scooped up water from the pool. Everyone didn't understand why he was doing this. For Chu Cheng, everything was obvious. He brought the shoe filled with water to Ye Xiao. In an instant, he splashed water from his shoe directly into Ye Xiao's face. According to him, he saved him. Everyone fussed even more because the gesture clearly looked suspicious. Song Muyang and Ling yelled at Chu Cheng, accusing him of making fun of poor Ye Xiao, who might be giving his soul to God right now. However, Ye Xiao began to show weak signs of life. Everyone rushed to him. Ye Xiao slowly opened his eyes. He felt water on his face and weakly asked what was happening and who saved him. Then the observers immediately began vying with each other to tell Ye Xiao exactly how Chu Cheng saved him by splashing water from his shoe in his face. Ye Xiao was taken aback by the news. Ye Xiao did not appreciate Chu Cheng's action, especially after learning that the water was splashed out from his own shoe. And I must say that it was disgusting for him to feel this water in his mouth. Someone finally thought to call an ambulance, and Ye Xiao was quickly taken away from there. Song Yan, who observed all the events, noted that although Chu Cheng saved Ye Xiao, she was sure that he would not forget about revenge, especially after the rescue method. Chu Cheng once again did not hear what she was telling him, and instead he carelessly took out his phone and dialed Xia. He asked Song Yan to stay at home, no matter what happened. The next minute he got through to Xia Bei and went to meet him at the bar. Song Yan simply couldn't find anything to say. Song Yan was indignant. Chu Cheng could not just up and leave, but Chu Cheng had a different opinion and was not afraid of anything. Chu Cheng tried his best to reassure his wife with reasonable arguments, and besides, Song Chu would be able to accompany him to this meeting. He promised to be home by evening. Song Chu had already jumped into the car and shouted to Song Yan not to worry about her husband, because he had undertaken to protect him. But Song Yan thought that it was others who needed to be protected from Chu Cheng, and they, sharply accelerating, took off, leaving Song Yan in a cloud of dust. Song Yan felt that Chu Cheng was becoming more and more uncontrollable, and her brother was being pulled there too. Multi-story hospital building. Ye Xiao could be heard screaming as he complained of pain all over his body. Ye Xiao was lying on a hospital bed, with Song Muyang and the doctor nearby. Ye Xiao was screaming like crazy, and the doctor insisted that he did not know the cause of Ye Xiao's pain, because all the tests were normal. Dong Rong walked along the corridor, all bandaged and with a crutch. He heard a familiar voice from the room. He looked into the room with curiosity and saw Ye Xiao in his condition. He was amazed to see him unconscious. Ye Xiao yelled as if maddened that Chu Cheng was to blame for his condition, and he fervently wanted Dong to gather a group and kick Chu Cheng's ass at any cost. The smell in the ward was unbearable. Dong hurried to hide, promising Mr. Ye Xiao that his guys would take care of Chu Cheng. The neon sign shone in the strobe lights. A group of young people in expensive suits sat on a leather sofa. The one sitting in the middle was in the company of pretty girlfriends. They were all drinking alcohol and having a conversation. One of them was Xia Bei, and he asked the guy with the girls if old man Huang would be angry with him for using the lion dance to make money. The guy with the girls in the company was the young master of the Huang family, Bao Hai. He looked quite confident and answered the same. He knew that the best masters had paid attention to him, and he himself had learned something from them. Elder Huang had a high opinion of his grandson, so there was no doubt about it. The third guy raised a toast to Bao Hai and wished him a lot of money. The girls immediately sang sweetly that they really wanted to see Bao Hai's skill. He, of course, wanted to show off in front of everyone, so he began to take something out of the inner pocket of his jacket. He took out a paper figurine of a person and invited them to name their date of birth according to the horoscope. And then, with the help of it, he will be able to control all human actions. Who among those present will dare to name their date of birth? But no one was particularly eager. The third guy, on the contrary, suggested another drink. But Bao Hai began to become furious because no one wanted to respect him. Xia Bei just silently drank from the glass and was sure that Bao Hai was just showing off in front of the girls. He hoped that Chu Cheng would not show up now. Suddenly, the door to the VIP room creaked, and Chu Cheng himself appeared on the threshold, dust-free. He greeted everyone and apologized for being late. The company immediately took notice of him because they had heard something about him. Xia Bei quietly spat because Chu Cheng appeared at the wrong time. The third guy noted that this was the son-in-law of the Song family, and now he would tell his date of birth. Bao Hai very casually turned to Chu Cheng and asked him to tell him his date of birth, and he, in turn, will graciously forgive him for being late. Chu Cheng clarified whether he heard everything correctly. Bao Hai's words hurt him, but for now he held his own. And why should he suddenly tell his date of birth to a complete stranger, who also addressed him inappropriately, rudely? The company listened carefully to Chu Cheng. Nobody clearly expected such a turn. Xia Bei didn't know what to do with himself, because he simply invited Chu Cheng to meet influential people and not cause a scandal. Xia Bei immediately jumped up and began to cajole the angry Bao Hai, apologizing that Chu Cheng simply misunderstood everything and that there was no point in developing the dispute further. He himself will happily announce his birthday. He hurried to say his date of birth, realizing that although he belonged to a powerful family, for now he was staying in the territory of the Huang family, and there was no point in trying. Chu Cheng did not understand such an attack from Xia Bei and immediately got angry, calling Bao Hai a cretin who just wants to show off. All of Xia Bei's intentions to defuse the situation immediately collapsed. The third guy jumped up and started poking at Chu Cheng. How could he call his master that? Punishing a fool for being rude in front of everyone was not very right for Bao Hai's reputation, so he was offered to simply forgive Chu Cheng if he kneeled down. Bao Hai arrogantly proposed a bet to Chu Cheng. If he, Bao Hai, proves that he is a great magician by casting a spell on Xia Bei, then Chu Cheng will kneel, Chu Cheng retorted, because Bao Hai might not have proven that he was a magician. So what then? Maybe then Bao Hai will kneel before Chu Cheng. Chu Cheng at this time put some piece of paper on the back of Xia, who was standing next to him. Bao Hai arrogantly stated that he would of course kneel, but this was unlikely to happen since no one believed in Chu Cheng's strength. Xia didn't know where to put his eyes, and the company just cheerfully teased. Xia Bei understood that such mystical things exist, so wouldn't it be more correct to just agree? In addition, Bao Hai studied with the best masters, so he could definitely use his magical power. However, Chu Cheng stood his ground. He was not afraid of Bao Hai's capabilities. Xia Bei wrote his date of birth on the figurine and gave it to Bao Hai. He should have been prepared, because now, according to Bao Hai's mocking words, he would see a miracle, and Chu Cheng would be disgraced. It cannot be said that Xia Bei calmly accepted the fact that something was about to happen to him. However, Chu Cheng reassured him not to worry. Bao Hai, with the crazy eyes of a manipulator, took Xia Bei's figurine and pierced it with a needle, ordering Xia Bei to raise his left hand. Xia Bei froze as a shiver ran through him. The sensations were indeed strange, but Xia Bei felt nothing. Everyone carefully watched Bao Hai's manipulations and Xia Bei's lack of results, but Bao Hai was not upset, but only continued his manipulations with the needle and paper figurine. He began to poke it at the figure, ordering this time that Xia Bei raise his right hand. However, nothing happened. Xia Bei himself began to think that Bao Hai was just a talker. Chu Cheng stood behind and chuckled at Bao Hai's powerlessness. He also began to get nervous because the needle and the figurine had no effect on Xia Bei, and this annoyed him, because this was the first time that nothing worked for him. He hurriedly poked the needle into the figure's hand, then into the leg, ordering Xia to lift this or that. However, Xia Bei simply stood there, much to everyone's regret. Chu Cheng noted to himself that the figures, the sheet with the figures that he glued to Xia's back, acted as a block just fine. Chu Cheng mockingly said that it was time for Bao Hai to show his magic mids because now it looked funny, like from some movie. Bao Hai was completely confused and powerless. His minion accused Chu Cheng of treating his precious lord inappropriately. Xia Bei again began to smooth out the corners, saying that Chu Cheng was just joking and that it was time to end all this. But Chu Cheng remembered their agreement very well, which meant that Bao Hai had to kneel before him, as required by the dispute. The servant immediately stood up for his master, shaming Chu Cheng and threatening him with violence. To the surprise of everyone, Bao Hai stopped the heated speeches of his servant. Did Chu Cheng really have such a high opinion of himself that Bao Hai had to kneel before him? Chu Cheng did not listen, but only urged him to fulfill the terms of the dispute. Xia Bei simply couldn't believe his ears. However, the next minute, Bao Hai knelt to the great horror of everyone. However, there was neither shame nor humility in his eyes. Bao Hai will not tolerate such shame. The whole party simply opened their mouths, watching the humiliating picture. Not the least representative of the powerful Huang family was kneeling in front of some Chu Cheng. But Chu Cheng answered him quite boldly and condescendingly allowed him to get up from his knees. Bao Hai did not understand where Chu Cheng got so much impudence to behave like a deity. The next moment, Bao Hai's guards surrounded Chu Cheng and Xia Bei. It was payback. Bao Hai confirmed with an arrogant look that retribution for his humiliation had come. Xiaobei and Chu Cheng found themselves surrounded by thugs intent on making mincemeat of them. Xiaobei got cold feet. However, he was sure that they would not touch him, and while he distracted them with himself, let Chu Cheng hide. But Chu Cheng was in no hurry to flee, surprising Xiaobei. Instead, Chu Cheng made a sharp turn towards Bao Hai. He put his hand forward, marveling at Chu Cheng's self-confident determination to start with him, with the most important thing. He was confident that his magical powers would protect him. Chu Cheng did not seem to hear this, but only broke through Bao Hai's defense with a sharp movement. Chu Cheng's hand immediately found itself on his opponent's throat. He smugly pointed out that he was in close proximity to him, and he asked threateningly, "What will Bao Hai do to him now?" Everyone in the room was simply taken aback by the fact that Bao Hai, a martial arts master who had been practicing since childhood, was now pinned down by the hand of some unknown Chu Cheng. Bao Hai's assistant finally ordered the guards to go on the attack. The guards immediately rushed towards Chu Cheng and Bao Hai with bats. It was in vain that Xiaobei tried to somehow dissuade Chu Cheng. But then something completely incredible happened. Bao Hai himself ordered the guards to stop. Not only that, he ordered them not to touch Chu Cheng. Those present could not believe their ears. Chu Cheng carelessly threw Bao Hai to the floor and told Xiaobei to get out of this party. Chu Cheng and a completely discouraged Xiaobei began to leave. The assistant did not believe that his master would really allow the offender to escape so easily. The same one angrily stated that he understood why his skills did not work. He admitted, not without malice, that Chu Cheng could do something, and his level was clearly superior to Bao Hai's. Everything that Bao Hai could do turned out to be empty in comparison with his skills. Bao Hai's sad thoughts were interrupted by his assistant. He was informed by phone that the bar was surrounded by Dong Rong's people on Ye Xiao's orders. Chu Cheng would definitely not get out of here alive. But Bao Hai, more than anyone else, understood that the number of people against Chu Cheng was useless. The assistant wondered why the gentleman thought so. However, Bao Hai suggested that he go out and see for himself, because he perfectly understood the power of magic. When they went outside, all of Dong Rong's people were lying haphazardly on the ground, stunned as if after a battle. The conclusion was the following: either invite strong magicians who could stop Chu Cheng's power, or not contact him at all. Xiaobei and Chu Cheng left the bar. Chu Cheng walked towards the car as if nothing had happened. Xiaobei was amazed and did not understand what had just happened. Xiaobei still said in amazement that there were a bunch of fighters there, and now they were all lying defeated. Was it Chu Cheng himself who killed them all? But Chu Cheng only mockingly replied that apparently they were all caught in the dark. Chu Cheng carefreely got into the car and said that he was going home to lull his little wife to sleep. Xiaobei stood next to the car, not understanding what happened and how all these fighters could just lie down like that. In the car, Chu Cheng was approached by Song Chu. He speculated that Chu Cheng might be hiding something from the Song family. Chu Cheng didn't listen to him, but simply thought that he used a couple of tricks that he learned at the age of 6, and apparently overdid it. Ye Xiao was still in the hospital. Now he was yelling at Dong Rong and couldn't believe that he sent a group of people to kill Chu Cheng, and he killed them all, left without a single scratch. Ye Xiao was in the hospital room and still couldn't believe what was happening. He didn't understand what forces were protecting Chu Cheng. Perhaps it was Xiaobei who asked some higher powers to protect Chu Cheng. His mother appeared in Ye Xiao's room and asked her son not to worry. She carefully offered her son an apple because he needed refreshment. Suddenly, Ye Xiao screamed and realized that his arm was paralyzed as soon as he touched the apple. And in general, when he touched something, it was as if something was stopping him. He yelled at his mother and ordered her not to touch him. Ye Xiao was writhing in helplessness on the hospital bed. He understood that he was obliged to take revenge on him for all his troubles. The next morning, Song Qingpeng was scrolling through the news feed on his phone. One piece of news particularly caught his attention. The screen showed Chu Cheng and Xiaobei hugging surrounded by roses, and the caption said that they were now lovers. Song Qingpeng now understood why Xiaobei cared so much about Chu Cheng. This news amused him a lot. An angry Song Yan appeared from the house. She immediately attacked her cousin with accusations of lying. But Song Qingpeng shoved the phone in her face and said that this was not his invention, but the news of the world. Song Qingpeng mockingly remarked that the Song family had used Chu Cheng to the maximum to force him to do such a thing. Song Yan was furious. Chu Cheng hurried to reassure his wife. However, she was worried about her family. The Xia family is very famous, and this stupid gossip might hinder their cooperation with them. Chu Cheng made some kind of magical gesture with his fingers behind his back and said that gossipers always get what they deserve. Both froze when they heard something. Song Yan was surprised, but Chu Cheng remained calm. In the distance, someone screamed heartbreakingly. Chu Cheng suggested going to see what happened. They clearly heard Song Qingpeng shouting, and when they approached, they saw a terrible picture. Between the legs of the roaring Song Qingpeng there was a snake. She grabbed him where it hurt. Song Yan was stunned and didn't know what to do. Did Chu Cheng himself predict retribution so quickly? Chu Cheng pointed the phone at Song Qingpeng, who was writhing in pain with a snake between his legs, and began filming it all on the phone, asking his wife to turn away, although she asked him to help somehow. Chu Cheng did just that, noting that this was his favorite thing, saving people, and swung his leg with all his might. And the next moment he charged Song Qingpeng between his legs. Song Qingpeng passed out from the blow, drooling, and the guards hurried to Chu Cheng, shouting and retreating. Song Qihui ordered Chu Cheng to be taken because from the outside, it seemed that Chu Cheng was simply beating the unconscious Song Qingpeng. But Chu Cheng, in his carefree manner, suggested that they first take a look at what was happening, and only then proceed to attack. And everyone saw the flattened head of a snake between Song Qingpeng's legs. Well, it looks like Chu Cheng saved his life. Song Qiwei recognized the same missing snake. Song Qingpeng, exhausted, asked his brother for an antidote. He ordered the guards to drag Song Qingpeng into the house. Song Yan wondered why Song Qingpeng was not sent straight to the hospital after such a dangerous, poisonous snakebite. But Chu Cheng, who was busy filming a funny video of Song Qingpeng's humiliation, suggested that the antidote was probably in the house. Everyone was in Song Muyang's house. Song Qihui blew snot and tears over his crushed snake, which he had tamed for so many years to attack. Song Muyang asked to quickly cure Song Qingpeng from the bite. Song Muyang, who was sitting on the edge of Song Qingpeng's bed, said that he had good news for them. Their elder brother Qinglong had won the favor of one of the daughters of the Huang family, so they urgently needed to see the head of the Huang family. The sons immediately perked up, because this was the most influential family in Changcheng, and if things went well, they would soon be able to call Huang's daughter their daughter-in-law. Song Muyang was not so excited because there were enough problems as it was. In Huang's mansion, grandfather examined the writings of his grandson Song Bao Hai. Elder Huang Jianghong sat on his bench, looking at his grandson's calligraphy, and was pleasantly surprised by his grandson's skills. This time, his work will definitely be at the ceremony. Bao Hai politely bowed to his grandfather and downplayed his abilities in order to look more worthy in the eyes of the head. However, he knew very well that eminent masters wrote calligraphy for him. Well, the grandfather seemed to buy it and didn't want to look at the other calligraphy, so he asked his grandson to help him put away the other sheets. Bao Hai took up the writing and was unpleasantly surprised. Among the letters sent was calligraphy signed by Chu Cheng. Bao Hai noted with curiosity that he did not expect to see anything interesting in his work, since he was not sure that he could write at all. In addition, the letter was signed somehow clumsily, and then he began to take a closer look at the hieroglyphs, which, to his great amazement, turned out to be masterfully painted and designed, like the writings of ancient eminent masters. Huang Jianghong did not understand why his grandson was so surprised. He approached from the back and immediately asked whose calligraphy Bao Hai was holding in his hands. Huang Jianghong took the calligraphy in his hands and simply froze with aesthetic pleasure, and immediately decided that this particular letter would be presented at the ceremony. Bao Hai whined like a puppy about his grandfather's promise to show him his calligraphy. However, the grandfather immediately besieged his grandson without a shadow of regret, because Bao Hai still had to study and study. Bao Hai retorted and immediately told Huang Jianghong that the letter was written by a marmot from Changcheng, and he simply could not master this level of writing because the signature was made clumsily. Huang Jianghong quickly and sternly besieged the arrogant grandson with the fact that for him, it did not matter who the author of the calligraphy was. The main thing was the skill. In addition, the meaning of the letter was very deep, which definitely spoke of the author's extraordinary abilities. Bao Hai could not resist his grandfather, so he gave up, but silently vowed to take revenge on Chu Cheng right at the ceremony. Ye Xiao was still in the hospital. No one knew how to treat Ye Xiao, but his mother, with tears in her eyes, promised him the best doctor from the neighboring city, where Ye Xiao needed to be urgently transported. He was coming from pain and powerlessness, so he simply yelled that only one person could save him, And this is Chu Cheng! The mother reassured her son so that he would not worry about Chu Cheng, because it was at her instigation that rumors spread online about the ambiguous relationship between Chu Cheng and Xia Bei. Soon the Xia family would become angry and break the tripartite agreement with the Song family. But Ye Xiao completely forgot about all matters. Most of all, he was interested in his own life, and he was ready to ask Chu Cheng to heal him, since he had already once managed to bring him to his senses after a snake bite. He ordered his mother to find Chu Cheng's contacts. Chu Cheng sat busily in a chair, getting ready for the meeting. They called him. In the tube, an angry Ye Xiao immediately flew at him and ordered him to neutralize the snake's poison. Chu Cheng enjoyed Ye Xiao's powerlessness. He wasn't going to help him, and after yesterday it was on Ye Xiao's orders that Chu Cheng was surrounded near the bar. What could Ye Xiao expect? Ye Xiao powerlessly tried to stop Chu Cheng and promised that he would no longer pursue Chu Cheng and would recall Dongrong's group. Well, Chu Cheng was ready to listen further, but there was one more condition on his part if Ye Xiao wanted to be saved. Song Sanyang has been walking around for days now due to the fact that Ye Xiao actually transferred his side to Song Muyanu. Ye Xiao understood what Chu Cheng wanted and promised to resume his side. Moreover, he is ready to humiliate himself if the cooperation suddenly falls apart for some reason. Ye Xiao eagerly wanted to know the recipe for the antidote. However, Chu Cheng mockingly stated that he did not know the recipe. Ye Xiao simply could not believe such mockery of himself. But Chu Cheng said that he doesn't know the recipe, but he knows who knows for sure. Chu Cheng sent the video to Ye Xiao. In the video, Ye Xiao saw the same snake that bit Song Qingpeng. Well, it turned out that Song Qingpeng was bitten by the same snake, but for some reason he was not taken to the hospital, but was sent straight to the house, where he, most likely, is already walking around alive and well. Wasn't it strange? And finally, Chu Cheng said that if Ye Xiao didn't believe, he could call Song Qingpeng himself and find out about everything. The fact began to dawn on Ye Xiao that it seemed that the brothers knew everything perfectly well, and when he was bitten by a snake, for some reason they did not rush to his aid to administer the antidote. He was angry and demanded that his mother immediately dial Song Qingpeng. Ye Xiao wanted to see for himself. Chu Cheng, in his usual manner, idly reasoned that it would be interesting for him to watch how Song Qingpeng would get out. Xia Bei and Song Yan happily left the negotiation room with a new person. He was clearly satisfied with the progress of the negotiations. It was Xia Yan Huan, Xia Bei's uncle. Song Yan has proven herself to be an experienced businesswoman, and they have already agreed to develop a pharmaceutical company in their city. Xia Bei flew on the wings of success, praising Song Yan's skills in every possible way and prophesying great success for her. Chu Cheng just chuckled and warned Xia not to look in his wife's direction. Xia Bei's phone rang. It was the grandfather of the Xia family. He immediately began accusing Xia Bei of inappropriate behavior in his relationship with Chu Cheng and disgracing their family. Apparently, the scandalous news from the network reached the Xia family. Xia Bei began to ask his grandfather not to believe in stupid gossip, but he was adamant and ordered his grandson to return home, breaking off cooperation with the Song family. Xia Yan Huan apologized to the embarrassed Song Yan that they would have to pause their cooperation. But someone's confident hand snatched the phone from Xia Bei's hands, and Chu Cheng confidently and assertively told his grandfather that he was Xia Bei's new lover, and offered to meet and talk. Xia Bei was furious because Chu Cheng began to speak rather cheekily to the head of the Xia family. Chu Cheng promised that he would save face for their family. Moreover, he confidently stated that the Xia family's company would enter the market in 4 months, and if the promises come true, then cooperation will continue. Chu Cheng continued to press the head of the family, saying that usually companies need a couple of years to successfully enter the market. But Chu Cheng offered some incredibly short terms. Would the Xia family really give up such prospects? The head of the Xia family listened to all this and was simply amazed at the impudence of the son-in-law of the Song family. 4 months was simply a ridiculously implausible period for such cases. Everyone thought Chu Cheng was a braggart. However, Grandfather Xia continued, despite the self-confident, arrogant statements of the young man, he was ready to give Chu Cheng a second chance. However, Chu Cheng was warned that if he failed in his promise, he should not be surprised by the consequences. And Chu Cheng handed the phone to the stunned Xia Bei. Xia Bei perked up because not everyone could cope with his grandfather. Xia Yan Huan, of course, was happy, but he was wondering how Chu Cheng was going to fulfill his promise in such a time frame. Chu Cheng confidently asked to believe him, because he just needed joint action with the pharmaceutical company. Song Yan watched her husband and also understood that the deadlines were simply unrealistic. But for some reason, she had the feeling that he would definitely cope. Song Qingpeng, Song Chi-wei, and Song Mu-yang appeared at the hospital, confident that Ye Xiao had called them in order to transfer all his affairs to them. The prospects were fascinating. Song Mu-yang expected to receive the status of head of the family at the next meeting. They entered the room with a bouquet of flowers as an absurd consolation for the dying man. With feigned, joyful smiles, they began vying to greet Ye Xiao. However, they were immediately besieged by Ye Xiao's mother with a furious cry, ordering them to fall to their knees. They did so out of surprise, not understanding what was happening. Ye Xiao immediately turned to Song Qingpeng with a claim, because he could have saved him from the poison of his snake. But why didn't he do it? Song Qingpeng began to pretend to be a fool who did not understand what he was talking about. Then Ye Xiao's mother poked the phone into the visitors' faces, where in the video Song Qingpeng was writhing from the bite. But why wasn't he now lying in agony in the hospital but was here in perfect health? Song Qingpeng was revealed, remembering how Chu Cheng had filmed everything. Song Mu-yang took the initiative into his own hands and immediately began to make excuses that they only wanted to teach Chu Cheng a lesson and did not think that it would get out of control. And of course, they would provide an antidote and really hoped that their cooperation with Ye Xiao. The mother could no longer stand it and slapped everyone in the face for their impudence in asking for continued cooperation. Ye Xiao shouted that if he continued to cooperate, it would only be with Song Sanyang. And after that, he did not want to have anything to do with the Song family. He demanded an antidote from the humiliated family. The stricken family did not leave the hospital in the best mood, and the culprit was none other than Chu Cheng. The stricken family left the hospital not in the best mood, and the culprit was none other than Chu Cheng. Song Mu-yang suddenly braked, staring at the phone. He was clearly in shock. Their eldest brother Qing Long had wooed the daughter of the Huang family, and tonight the head of the family invited them all to dinner to discuss family matters. For Song Mu-yang, the #1 task was to become related to the Huang family, even if ties with him were severed after that. It was the Huang family that decided everything in Changcheng anyway. The news for Song Mu-yang was wonderful, and he was very much looking forward to the marriage of the son and daughter of the Huang family. Then it would be possible to take full revenge on my brother. In the evening, in the Song house, there was only talk about the news. The marriage of Qing Long and the daughter of the Huang family, Lin Xingpin vying with each other about what he heard with his own ears. The sons-in-law were most worried, because they were essentially nothing of themselves, and had some kind of status only thanks to their father-in-law, who was the head of the Song family. The prospect of remaining a nobody, if leadership passes to Song Mu-yang, looms on the horizon. The brothers' enmity had long-standing and deep roots. The whole point was that Song Mu-yang considered Song Sanyang responsible for the death of his wife. Song Sanyang felt how thin the ground was under their feet. However, was it worth worrying so much? There was no talk of marriage yet. This assumption was made by Chu Cheng, who entered the house. He didn't understand why everyone was so nervous about something that hadn't happened yet. Moreover, Chu Cheng had much better news. He announced that not only would they not lose the contract with the Xia family, but they would also continue to cooperate with Ye Xiao without Song Mu-yang's interference. Lin immediately accused Chu Cheng of being delusional in everything he said, but Chu Cheng assured that his source of information was reliable, although slightly unusual. Otherwise, how would he have known about the needles in the whip? Song Sanyang was eager to know how Chu Cheng knew everything. If he really knew that the whip was poisoned, then everything else he said was true. The family froze in anticipation of the secret being revealed. Chu Cheng showed a childish image of a seashell on his phone screen with a goofy smile. You can safely ask anything you want from this application on your phone, and it will answer you. The family was disappointedly surprised at their son-in-law's childish play. Chu Cheng also stupidly noted that he reposted. Lin, who especially didn't like Chu Cheng, couldn't believe Chu Cheng's idiotic ridicule because it was about the fate of the Song family. And here he was playing with a phone with a stupid toy. Song Yan appeared at the door with a stack of papers. It was important for her to make a statement for everyone. Lin foamed at the mouth and asked that Chu Cheng be taken away because he acted like a complete idiot when asked about important things. Song Yan pulled out some papers and showed them to everyone. Chu Cheng was telling the truth. Cooperation has not been stopped. Everyone's eyes rolled out of amazement. Lin began to read the document in Song Yan's hands with his own eyes, and Mr. Sia's signature was indeed there. It turned out that Mr. Sia did not care about rumors that could harm his reputation, since he signed the agreement anyway. The sons-in-law were sure that this was the work of Chu Chung's luck. Trilateral cooperation, despite all the circumstances, has been resumed. Song Sanyang's phone rang and he began to have a lively conversation with someone. The next news stunned everyone even more, because according to the no less stunned Song Sanyang, he was now called by Ye Xiao, who expressed his contempt for Song Muyang and suggested that they resume negotiations. The family did not have time to digest all the news of that day and still turned to their son-in-law with questions. The brothers-in-law, with a completely different expression on their faces, began vying with each other to ask Chu Chung if it was a magic application on his phone that gave answers to all questions, as he said. Well, Chu Chung suggested that they all just try and install this application for themselves. Everyone asked Chu Chung to add them to WeChat so that they could try all this magic themselves, without a shadow of mistrust or contempt. That same evening, the Magic Shell app completely absorbed all the attention of the rest of the Song family, and Chu Chung was even able to earn some money. Under the gentle rays of the evening sun, Song Yan and Chu Chung walked near the house. Today, their agreement with the Sia family officially entered into force. One of Sia's conditions was to acquire an office in the Jintan high-rise building, but there was a problem. Jintan belonged to the Huang family, and when Song Muyang became related to the Huang family, he only had to hint, and they would be trampled out of there like they were cute. In addition, the Song family was limited by one more condition. They only had 4 months to fulfill the agreement with the Sia family. All conditions could only be obtained in the Jintan building. Unexpectedly for Song Yan, Chu Chung pulled her towards him and hugged her, worrying and worrying along with her. This definitely had never happened before, which made Song Yan quite discouraged. Chu Chung promised her to sort out the office in Jintang. Chu Chung dialed his faithful assistant Song Chu and suggested doing something. Song Yan was worried that Chu Chung was planning to start another fight. He carefully assured her that nothing like that would happen. He respected the laws of honest people, and his disarming smile confirmed his words to Song Yan. The grotesque building stood in complete darkness under the moon. Chu Cheng and Song Chu sneaked inside. Song Chu, of course, was not a coward, but he did not understand what they were doing here. There was darkness and silence inside. Song Chu tried not to be afraid, but the unknown was stressful. Inside the building, one could distinguish the silhouettes of skulls on some stands. What is this? A crypt? Song Chu sincerely did not understand where they were and why they were here. Chu Chung took one of the skulls without much fear and invited Song Chu to stay outside if he was feeling uneasy. But he was brave as usual. He had the status of being Chu Chung's personal guard, so no, he would stay with Chu Chung. Suddenly, someone's sharp voice was heard behind him with an order to get out of here, and when someone grabbed Song Chu by the shoulder, he simply shit himself in horror. Something unimaginable was standing behind him. An ugly female grotesque face with a crazy smile from all over her face. Song Chu couldn't control his emotions. Despite his respectable status as Chu Chung's guard, Song Chu fled from there in no time, citing some ridiculous circumstance. Chu Chung did not count on the youth since he was a known coward. Chu Chung was not at all frightened by the scary lady. He just needed a calligraphy brush, which he saw inside the building, which turned out to be just a very strange store. The figure began to take off his grotesque head, which turned out to be just a carnival mask, and from under it appeared a sweet young girl who, quite like an adult, protested that the store was closed to visitors. The girl immediately demanded that Chu Chung get out, since the Star Placer store, which belonged to Huang Wu, was closed. Chu Chung, kindly and not paying any attention to her protests, noticed a small piece of paper with symbols in her hands. It looked like it was Lin Fu's talisman, and since she was holding it in her hands, she seemed to be one of the star-scattering mages. She was quite surprised how Chu Chung knew about the Star Placer. Chu Chung then admitted that he was actually the senior disciple of the head mage of the Star Scattering, and she seemed to be the junior generation of this school. He rather cheekily covered her head with his palm, to her considerable surprise, and said that she was supposed to honor him as an elder. The girl got seriously angry, threw his hand off her head and sharply directed one of her magical gestures with 2 fingers at him, not wanting to obey some stranger who dared to violate her boundaries. Chu Chung blocked the attempt to damage himself. She stated that he would not leave here until he apologized to her for his arrogant behavior. Chu Chung did not expect this from the young girl. He immediately grabbed her wrist, which surprised her a lot. The girl's hand, like herself, ended up in the air, raised above the ground by an angry Chu Chung. While blocking her blow, Chu Chung damaged the sleeve of his new jacket. He was furious, because if Song Yan noticed a defect in the suit, he would think that Chu Chung had gotten into a fight again, and then a scandal would be inevitable. And it was all the fault of an impudent girl who didn't know her place. The girl realized that he somehow not only grabbed her hand, but also somehow immobilized her. Chu Chung lost interest in her and lowered her to the ground, being preoccupied with his torn suit. If he didn't know that she was from the star-scattering school of mages, he would have made a chop out of her. Chu Chung took out the same Ling Fu talisman to the girl's great surprise. And he said that he would write his phone number on it so that she would contact him in case of trouble, because Chu Chung promised his teacher from the Star Placer School of Magicians that he would take care of her students if he met them on his way. The girl was quite surprised that the talisman somehow ended up in the hands of this impudent stranger. Chu Chung rather casually handed the talisman to her, as if he didn't notice how annoyed she was with his arrogant manners in communication. The girl was furious. Besides the fact that he behaved this way, he also defaced her talisman with his inscriptions. Chu Chung was about to leave, grabbing brushes and a red mercury-based liquid that was used in icon painting. The girl finally realized that she could move. She was bursting with frustration and powerlessness, but she remembered Chu Cheng and intended to take revenge. Suddenly, she took a closer look at the scribbled talisman, and it dawned on her. She had been unsuccessfully trying to decipher the inscriptions on it for several months. Now, when Chu Cheng's numbers were on the talisman, the meaning of what was written on the talisman became clear to her. She happily rushed away, shouting her newly discovered knowledge in deciphering the talisman. Chu Cheng left the store with a satisfied grin, noting that although the little girl was a rude person, since she was a student at the Star Placer School, he, as her mentor, could not help but give her a gift. An old man came out of the back room of the store, to whom Uyu turned with joyful cries that she understood the meaning of the talisman. It was her grandfather, Huang Xian. He was surprised that his granddaughter managed to unravel the symbols in just a few months. If this continues, then she has a real opportunity to touch the ninth heaven. The granddaughter sincerely did not understand why they, belonging to the people of the star scattering, would touch this ninth heaven. The grandfather condescendingly scolded his granddaughter for her youthful stupidity, because she should have known that all earthly talents originate at the gates of the ninth heaven. It was a place that did not fit into earthly boundaries. There are 9 branches in the teaching of the ninth heaven. Many spend their entire lives to learn at least one branch. They, the representatives of the star scattering, were given the knowledge of one branch, and also to found a school. Over the past 50 years, only 5 people from the star scattering have been able to join the ninth heaven. It was too difficult. Uyu looked at the talisman. This strange guy just looked at it and was able to decipher the message. So maybe he was also one of the representatives of the ninth heaven. The grandfather turned around in rage when he heard his granddaughter. How could she treat this great man so disrespectfully? But the girl, with the ardor of a teenager, declared that this man did not in any way resemble the mentor due to the fact that he looked no more than 20 years old. She simply did not believe his boast that he was also the senior student of their main teacher. Grandfather wondered where he got such abilities from. The girl decisively stepped forward and declared that she would study even harder in order to one day surpass this impudent mentor. A fashionable skyscraper stood in the center of Changcheng. Song Muyang received today a dear guest who, perhaps, would soon become his relative. It was Mr. Huang, whose daughter they wanted to marry Song Muyang's eldest son, Song Qinglong. At a luxurious table, Song Qinglong raised a toast and tried in every possible way to express his respect to the guests. The guest, Mr. Huang Qide, chided his future son-in-law in his own way. The main thing for him was that he loved his daughter Xuxia, and that would suit him perfectly. Huang Qide was a considerable man by physical standards, but Xu Huang was simply a hulk compared to the men present here. She absurdly poked her father in the chest, pretending to be a little girl in need of the protection of a strong man. Xuxiu theatrically pretended to be touchy and shy. Song Qinglong played the role of a caring groom. Song Qinglong carefully confessed to Xu his incredible love at first sight, pouring sweet lies into the girl's ears. And these two, a long and thin guy and a huge bodybuilder, began to almost shed tears from happy vows of love forever to each other. The strong girl lifted the fragile young man from the ground and embraced him. The fathers were happy, each in their own way, of course. And then Song Muyang started his barrel organ, which is exactly why he came here with his son. Since the wedding is just around the corner and they will soon become related, could the future influential relative do a favor for the future relative? Huang Qide condescendingly replied that he should not try to be polite and ask for whatever he wanted, and Song Muyang began to basely complain about his own brother Song Sanyang. And he is all so poor and unhappy, according to him. He suffered from unfair treatment on the part of his brother and his family. Theatrically, Song Muyang wrung his hands at the injustice of life. Song Sanyang stole the contract from under his nose. Song Sanyang offended his sons. He had to just sit and silently endure the humiliation of his own brother. This worked great on Huang Qide. He immediately yelled furiously, "Did someone really dare to offend his future son-in-law, Qinglong?" Song Muyang continued. He said that Qinglong would like to participate in the development of the Jintan Center, but his brother's daughter also wants to go to Jintan. This will not allow Qinglong to settle there. Compromises have to be made. Huang Qide was furious and slammed his fist on the table. Song Muyang perfectly achieved the reaction he wanted. The Jintan building is the property of the Huang family, which means Huang Qide is also the owner. Song Sanyang's family will not even be allowed to enter the door, let alone buy an office. Sun Muyang rubbed his hands contentedly. It seems that he managed to set everything up in his own way. Everyone also raised toasts to butter the new relatives. Chu Cheng heard everything that was happening in Song Muyang's house. The old fox started a dangerous game to annoy Song Yan first of all. Chu Cheng took out a brush he had recently purchased and began to paint something fancy on his hand. He put his fingers together in some kind of bizarre, magical gesture and thought that the guests were probably a little bored just sitting and drinking. The time has come to play a funny game. The moment of truth. At this second, Qinglong, who was standing with a glass, suddenly froze. Everyone at the table noticed this, and then he seemed to reveal his true face. The smile of a passionate lover was replaced by rage. He began to shake in a fit of sudden anger. His future wife pouted and expected that the young man would now propose to her. However, the next moment the incredible happened. Qinglong threw a glass of red wine into the face of his future wife. Qinglong, with a mocking triumph on his face, blurted out that he demands due respect for himself. Everyone at the table fell silent at such an unheard-of gesture. Song Muyang screamed hysterically, not knowing what to say. Qinglong continued and blurted out that nothing strange is happening. He just speaks and acts the way he really thinks. Qinglong did not stop, but poured the remaining wine onto her blouse, immediately revealing all his father's selfish plans regarding the true reason for marrying Shu Shu. Well, how could he? Qinglong, handsome and all that. Even look at a mamzelle like the SSBW Shu Shu. Shu Shu froze, babbling his name in complete shock. At this point, Huang Qide began to come to his senses. He exploded from his seat and started yelling at Qinglong, saying that he was actually saying terrible things about his precious daughter. However, Qinglong seemed to be taken in by a demon, and he switched to Huang Qide, first calling him an old fart. He mockingly continued, accusing Shu Shu of being too masculine, as if Huang Qide fed her not with formula milk, but with sports nutrition. As soon as she was born, Huang Qide's heart began to ache from such abomination. Meanwhile, Qinglong did not shut up. However, the next moment, a powerful left blow from Shu Shu forced Qinglong to shut up. Shu Shu pinned the wimpy Qinglong to the floor with her powerful inflated legs, revealing his vile plans towards her. It turns out he was just playing with her feelings all this time. Shukshu grabbed his neck with her bodybuilder hands, intending to strangle the freak. It is clear that this was the end of their relationship. Shushu solemnly began to leave this place, inviting her father with her. Song Muyang stood dumbfounded and watched as his plan collapsed like a house of cards, thanks to his son's chatter. What came over Qinglong? Song Qingpeng tried to bring his brother to his senses, but Song Qinghe noted that not everything is so simple. He felt that Qinglong did not act of his own free will. He was controlled by someone. It was clearly a magical trail. Song Muyang was surprised whether there really was a magician in his brother's family who could do this. But if the magician was present somewhere nearby, how could he know where exactly the meeting with the Huang family would take place? Who could have spilled the beans? Song Qingpeng shook and admitted that he had chatted a lot about this meeting in front of everyone today. And Song Muyang could not restrain himself and hit his son in the face. There was too much at stake to forgive the offspring a long tongue. Therefore, he now received everything from his father in full. Song Muyang blamed Song Sanyang for all the troubles, but he was not going to give up so easily. Chu Cheng moved away from the high-rise building where the meeting was taking place. He, of course, knew that his abilities were good, but he didn't think that everything would end so well. Meanwhile, Chu Cheng noticed a strange guy who was hammering an iron lamppost for nothing and was very dissatisfied with something. What happened to this guy? Chu Cheng decided to come closer and take a better look at this guy, and before him appeared a powerful-looking man, clearly engaged in wrestling. He looked terrible. He hit the post with his fist, breaking a crack in it. Chu Cheng decided to reprimand him about the fact that the pillar is the property of the state, and it was not worth breaking it. The thug immediately turned to Chu Cheng, wanting to get a better look at who dared to make comments to him. To his surprise, he saw a rather puny guy compared to himself. How dare he reprimand him? He's tired of living. But the fact was that he was lost in the city, and he needed to get to some kind of fist fight. But Chu Cheng suggested that he call himself a taxi and show the driver a place. He would take him himself. But the strong man complained that he often gets sick in the car. Even a bicycle is not an option. Chu Cheng, of course, was surprised. He was so formidable. But he couldn't stand the chatter. Well, Chu Cheng volunteered to help him. He invited him to share his phone number with him, and he, Chu Cheng, would send him the coordinates of the place where he could take part in a fist fight. The scarecrow immediately perked up, and they began to exchange information. The strong man was extremely grateful to him for his help and wanted to know the name of his virtue. Well, Chu Cheng, go ahead and call yourself Dong Rong. Well, it looked like Dong Rong's group was facing another battle. Shining multi-story building in the center of Jintan. Businessmen scurried around the business center every now and then. Song Yan and Chu Cheng arrived at the scene. She was glad that yesterday Uncle Song Muyang was rumored to have failed with the Huang family, so they had a chance to still try to buy an office for the pharmaceutical company. Song Yan even closed her eyes while watching the glass facade of the luxurious building. She didn't want to gloat, but she was glad that her uncle didn't succeed, which means it should be easier for them. Today, they had to work hard to get the office. Chu Cheng has repeatedly pressed the button to call the administrator in the foyer. He had already done this more than a dozen times because no one came to them. Both had been in the foyer for a couple of hours, and no one had come out to them. There were rumors that the Jintan administrator was a snob. However, he finally appeared, slowly stirring his coffee, casually apologizing for the long wait. He introduced himself, saying that he was Director Huan and was in charge of the offices on this floor. Song Yan politely began to have a business conversation with a guy who clearly wanted to look more important than he actually was. He immediately stated that the offices here cost exorbitant amounts of money. Song Yan nevertheless asked how much such real estate could cost. The administrator, with an arrogant face, said that this would be unaffordable for them. The administrator did not believe at all that their new pharmaceutical company could compete with the same companies of Ye Shao and the Qian family. They needed to come to terms with the fact that the Shao and Qian families were longtime friends and partners. Leisurely sipping his coffee, the administrator added that the best thing for them would be to find another office, because here they would not last a day and would go bankrupt. Song Yan and Chu Cheng listened to the administrator's sour words with dissatisfaction. Chu Cheng asked his wife what kind of pharmaceutical company Qian is. Song Yan informed him that the Qian family is one of the 5 most powerful families. The city of Changcheng is currently ruled by 5 families: Huang, Zhao, Sun, Qian, and the Song Sanyang family. Although even now she's going through hard times. Chu Cheng really didn't like the attitude of the administrator, who, as soon as he saw them, immediately began to humiliate them. Song Yan had to ask him to give them a chance and still sell the office on this floor. An elegantly dressed young man appeared on the threshold. He immediately began to greet Song Yan. It was the young master, the representative of the Qian family, Qian Bushao. The administrator immediately changed his anger to mercy, jumped up and began to bow to the newcomer. Song Yan also stood up and greeted him. Qian Bushao sat down in a chair like a master. However, the first positive opinion about his friendliness disappeared as soon as he spoke to Song Yan, who was essentially unfamiliar to him, in an arrogant tone, because he doubted her business abilities. And she was clearly one of Ye Shao's wards. Song Yan was unpleasantly surprised by such an unexpected assumption. He laid out all his trump cards at once without unnecessary pleasantries. He and Ye Shao were longtime friends and business partners. Therefore, if Song Yan is friendly with Ye Shao, then Qian Bushao will not interfere. But if she came, roughly speaking, from the street, then you shouldn't expect friendliness from him. Song Yan was still trying to smooth things over by saying that Qian had misunderstood everything. They came with the intention of cooperating. She had no personal relationship with Ye Xiao, and the person who came to the reception with her was her husband. Qian and the administrator laughed right in Song Yan's face, mockingly declaring that Song Yan really couldn't be related to Ye Xiao in any way because their wedding agreement was a fiasco. Qian abruptly had to shut up and lower his arrogant tone because a blow flew into his face. Chu Cheng stood over the amazed Qian Bushao. Chu Cheng didn't understand why they were chatting about everything in the world, but not about the direct matter for which they, in fact, came here. About buying an office. Qian Bushao was shocked by this behavior. Song Yan tried to pull her husband back, and the administrator rushed to the poor, unfortunate Mr. Qian Bushao. Qian Bushao slowly began to rise, justifying his conversations only by the fact that he wanted to warn them not to meddle where they were not asked. However, Chu Cheng's fame preceded him. Qian Bushao annoyedly began to yell at them, because before coming here, they should have asked permission to conduct pharmaceutical business from him. Everyone knows this. So what did they expect in return? Coming here with such impudence. And since they did not ask his permission, he vowed to crush them like fleas. Qian Bushao carelessly grabbed Chu Cheng by the collar of his shirt. Was he really so stupid that he went to fight him? Realizing that with such actions he was exposing his cooperation with Mr. Xia? And since he wants to knock down the daredevil, then let him slap him in the face one more time right here and right now. Chu Cheng did not need to be asked twice. Qian Bushao was thrown to the floor by another blow. Chu Cheng advanced threateningly towards the astonished Qian Bushao. In his entire life, Chu Cheng had never heard of people voluntarily asking to hit them. Well, Qian Bushao asked for it himself, so don't be surprised now when he gets kicked in the stomach. The administrator rushed about and did not know what to do. His own owner was beaten in front of his eyes. Qian Bushao shouted from the floor to the administrator to grab the guards, or at least someone to help. Security with batons immediately appeared in the foyer. Song Yan again stepped forward in front of Chu Cheng and demanded that the police be called to resolve the conflict. Chu Cheng, touched by how his tiny wife was trying to protect him from a crowd of angry people, calmed her down. He has already written to Xia, who will sort everything out. The administrator tried to help Qian Bushao get back on her feet. The same one gloatingly threatened Chu Cheng with quick death, since he behaved like that. Chu Cheng was tied up by the guards, and Song Yan was grabbed by the women from the guards, taking everyone to different corners. Song Yan naively asked Chu Cheng to flee, but Chu Cheng, with his hands tied, calmed her down and asked her not to resist, because in the end they would all still ask for forgiveness for their actions. Qian Bushao only laughed at Chu Cheng's ridiculous words about his supposedly quick apology. The administrator's phone rang at the wrong moment. He didn't look at the subscriber's number and rushed into the receiver. The stern voice of Huang Baohai was heard on the phone. The administrator regretted that he was even born into this world. The guards led Chu Cheng away by the arms. Qian Bushao began waving a brick threateningly in front of the immobilized Chu Cheng. How could Chu Cheng frame the entire Song family so foolishly, since their position was not very favorable anyway? And such a fragile agreement between the Xia family and the Song family was about to collapse due to Chu Cheng's ridiculous actions. Qian Bushao grabbed Chu Cheng by the hair, bringing the brick to his head. He swung, anticipating a quick and bloody reprisal. Song Yan was seriously afraid for Chu Cheng's life. Before Qian Bushao had time to lower the brick on Chu Cheng's head, he himself received another blow to the face. Not from Chu Cheng, but from the administrator who ordered Qian Bushao not to touch Chu Cheng. Qian unsuccessfully flew towards the pots of office cacti and was now screaming in pain. The administrator hurried to Chu Cheng with an apology. He immediately began to grovel before him, calling him master. He began to make excuses that there was a misunderstanding. Chu Cheng was free. Song Yan immediately pulled him away, worried about such a wild development of events. It didn't work out with the office building. So be it. Safety comes first. In addition, the sudden change in the administrator's mood was completely incomprehensible. But the administrator began to bow to her, apologizing for his behavior. He was ready to sell them anything, even at a discount. Qian Bushao stopped the administrator, not understanding why he was crucifying himself in front of these two. The administrator dryly explained to Qian Bushao that he had a very unpleasant conversation with Mr. Huang Baohai, who ordered to cooperate with Chu Cheng, and anyone who would somehow interfere would have a direct conversation with him. Chu Cheng silently celebrated his victory. It seems that back then in the bar, Bao Hai felt the power of Chu Cheng's magic and did not cross these boundaries even now. The administrator was still bowing to Chu Cheng and Song Yan, suggesting that they quickly move on to signing the contract. Qian Bushao did not stop and threatened Chu Cheng with death when he went outside. Qian Bushao was already dialing someone on the phone. It seemed that Durong's group would be waiting for Chu Cheng from the Jantan building. Chu Cheng simply answered Qian Bushao so that he would not rely too much on Dong Rong's help. He won't come. Qian Bushao boasted that Dong Rong would do anything for him, so Chu Cheng should have prepared himself. No matter what Chu Cheng said, Qian Bushao immediately ordered Dong Rong to come with his entire group to Jintan's building. However, instead of what was expected, Dong Rong's voice spoke to Qian Bushao and asked him to come and save him. Chu Cheng mocked and shoved a phone under Qian Bushao's nose with a live broadcast of a boxing match where Dong Rong was being butchered to smithereens. Something unimaginable was happening on the screen. Dong Rong and his manager were lying in the ring, and the host of the fight announced that the famous Dong Rong had been knocked out live. But who could defeat Dong Rong? After all, it was usually the other way around. Chu Cheng rummaged through his correspondence with his recent night acquaintance, the same big guy who was looking for partners for a fist fight. Looks like he found himself a punching bag, and Chu Cheng was happy to help with advice. The big man did not disappoint Chu Cheng. It was evening at the Song family's house. Song Yan was still surprised at Chu Cheng's luck. Why, as soon as Chu Cheng appeared nearby, all dangers were resolved as if by magic. Chu Cheng simply replied that he just loved helping people. They were heading down the corridor to a family meeting, where Song Yan, despite everything, asked Chu Cheng to behave more modestly. But Chu Cheng was already modesty itself. The entire Song family was sitting at the large table. The father of the family was interested in how Song Chu was doing with his lion dance in connection with the imminent opening of the ceremony. Song Chu dejectedly admitted that although he trains every day, his skills are not as good as those of the other contestants. Lin Xinping sarcastically remarked that they do not expect any great success from Song Chu. The main thing is that he is not the first from the end and does not disgrace their family. Zhou Jian also did not particularly support Song Chu and compared his efforts to a pheasant that would never fly higher than an eagle. It was worth overestimating your strengths and looking at the world realistically. But Song Chu really wanted to take first place for the sake of his family. Chu Cheng, who entered the room, immediately encouraged Song Chu and asked him not to listen to the stupid ridicule of the family members and to believe in himself. The family sarcastically began to pour ridicule towards Chu Cheng, since he was a stranger and did not understand the whole situation. Chu Cheng did not agree with the status of an outsider, and to prove this, he wanted to bet on Song Chu. It was possible to place bets on the participants of the competition. The Song family members also bet on Song Chu, but the amount was ridiculous because they did not believe in Song Chu's abilities. How much did Chu Cheng bet? The same one took out his phone and showed how much he bet on Song Chu. An exorbitant million. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw the amount of the bet. Song Yan did not understand where Chu Cheng got such money from. Chu Cheng explained that it was a favor to him. But why didn't Chu Cheng consult Song Yan? The sons-in-law immediately laughed at Chu Cheng's bid. You could build a business with 1 million, but then the money will obviously be lost, because it's like betting on a baby who is going to take part in a marathon. The previous winner of the lion dance competition is a member of the Huang family, and he has been a winner for several years now. Song Chu, of course, was grateful to Chu Cheng for his trust. However, he himself understood that he could not compare in his skill with the winner of previous years. Currently, Song Chu's chances are estimated at 1 in 20. If he wins, he can earn 20 million. The sons-in-law did not stop slandering and made fun of Chu Cheng's futile waste of money. Maybe he asked the magic app again, and it told him to throw away millions? Elder Song Changqing, Song Muyang, and his sons appeared at the door. The meeting began. The elder sat down in the central chair and demanded that the sons Song Sanyang and Song Muyang tell the latest news of the family. Song Sanyang began. He announced that they had managed to establish negotiations on trilateral cooperation with Ye Shao. The head of the Xia family approved their negotiations. Things were looking up. What could Song Muyang say about his affairs? Sun Muyang was deflated. There was nothing to tell him. Things were not going well in light of the recent events with Song Qinglong's failed engagement. Song Chang-king left the status of head of the family to Song Sanyang. Song Qinglong and Song Qingpeng silently endured their failures, blaming Chu Cheng for everything. Song Chang-king continued. He was worried about the upcoming ceremony in which Song Chu was supposed to show his lion dance. All these years, their family had been at the very bottom of the rankings, and this situation did not suit the elder. He wanted Song Sanyang and Song Muyang to unite in the sports arena and help the family win a worthy place in the competition. Song Sanyang agreed to his father's request. Only he understood perfectly well that in recent years, he and his brother had been like cats and dogs, and it was unlikely that anything worthwhile would come of this cooperation. Song Muyang hypocritically stated that from their side, Song Chu could have received full support in the competition. However, the faces of Song Qingpeng and Song Qinglong showed something completely different. The brothers-in-law were surprised among themselves at such an open agreement to help on the part of Uncle Muyan. It didn't look like him. Well, it seemed that the matter was resolved for Song Changking, and he thanked his sons for their obedient agreement. By joining forces, they could achieve success. Song Muyang also hypocritically continued to assent to his father. However, Song Muyang's feigned flattery did not escape Chu Cheng either. It was Chu Cheng's duty to warn Song Chu to be careful in competitions, because he doubted Song Muyang's uncle's good intentions. Not only that, Chu Cheng even stated that Song Chu might die. Song Chu was scared enough to listen to Chu Cheng's words. Song Muyang, through clenched teeth, anticipated a quick reckoning over Chu Cheng, intending to use the upcoming competition to his advantage. The evening before the ceremony in honor of Elder Huan was filled with excitement. Huang Baohai was scrolling through the newsfeed on his phone and was amazed how Xia Bei could bet $1 million on Song Chu. Did the rumors that circulated about Xia Bei and Chu Cheng turn out to be true? They were lovers? And Xia tried to somehow appease Chu Cheng by betting money on an obviously losing option? Huang Baohai already had a plan to kill Chu Cheng. He called his teacher to the city to bring Chu Cheng to light with the help of his calligraphy. The opening ceremony of the holiday was already in full swing. From the very morning, a helicopter flew over the festival site, carrying red banners behind it. Down on the streets, everything was decorated with balloons. The arena, where large entertainment events were planned, friendly invited the townspeople and guests of Changzhen to attend the festival. The Song family also headed inside the arena, noting the magnificent decoration of the holiday and the large number of visitors and participants in the competition. Song Muyang also did not lag behind and assured the family elder that he had prepared for the celebration by inviting his eldest son, Song Qing Ying, to participate in the competition. He was dressed in a grotesque lion costume. According to Song Muyang, Song Qing Ying had a lot of experience, and he would help Song Chu break through to the top of the rankings of the participants. Song Qing Ying took off the head of the lion suit and greeted Song Chu. Elder Song Changking was happy about the interaction between the grandchildren, who would definitely make their way to the top together. The brothers shook each other's hands in greeting. The family settled down in their assigned places. Song Muyang tried his best to please his father, holding his hand. Xia Bei was also here, and noticing Chu Cheng invited him to sit next to him. On the bench next to Xia Bei, Ye Xiao, Huang Baohai, and their other family members were already in good health. Ye Xiao cockily noted that Xia Bei had put $1 million on Song Chu in vain, and suggested that he change the bet before the competition began. Xia Bei mockingly asked, "Does Ye Xiao really think that he will bet on him? But this is very unlikely." Chu Cheng chuckled appreciatively at the exchange between the two. Those faces twisted at Xia Bei's direct answers. Bao Hai, having his own plans, only conspiratorially noted that they would still see who would laugh last. The hall was full of visitors. Everyone calmed down a little when the head of the Huang family, Huang Jianghong, appeared. The drummer began to tap out a ceremonial rhythm. Huang Jianghong appeared on the stage under the spotlight, accompanied by security. One of the lions made a welcoming gesture on stage. It was the Lion King, Huang Shixun, dressed in a ceremonial costume. This was precisely the man who for many years in a row had been the best expert in the lion dance, and no one could compare with him. Bao Hai really hoped that Huang Shixun, like his cousin, would do everything right this year, which would help him earn tens of millions by betting on him. The daughters of Song Sanyang trembled at the sight of Huang Shixun, on whom they also made bets and hoped to get rich. Chu Cheng alone, in his usual idle mood, did not find anything special in Huang Shixiong. Chu Cheng thought that if he himself participated in the duel, He could defeat Huang Shishun and earn millions. Xia Bei, who had also clearly bet on Huang Shishun, became thoughtful at Chu Cheng's words. Meanwhile, Huang Jianghong announced that now, as always, the main thing will be the lion dance competition, and then he will announce to everyone whose calligraphy won this time and will let everyone admire it. Receiving approval from Huang Jianghong is the same as ascending to heaven. Who will be this lucky one? Chief Huang Jianghong finished his announcements to everyone and declared the holiday open. Contestants dressed in various bright lion costumes began to run onto the stage. Song Chu was also among them, followed by Song Qingying, who suggested that Song Chu run ahead and he would cover him. Song Sanyang, who was watching the unfolding action on stage with tension, noted that Song Qingying was indeed helping Song Chu. Elder Song Chongqing responded favorably that it should be so, and Song Muyang hypocritically agreed. Song Qingying was a match for his family. It was not for nothing that he agreed to help his hated brother. Over all these years, he learned from the magicians how to kill a person without leaving a trace, so that as soon as the competition began, there would be no wet spot left of Song Chu. Song Muyang didn't mind. The competition began with the participants jumping into the water. Song Chu realized that he could not jump that far. But then Song Qingying arrived. He shouted to Song Chu to stand on his back, push as hard as possible and jump. Song Chu was frightened by this prospect. However, Song Qingying encouraged him, citing that families should help family. Song Chu pushed away from Song Qingying's back with all his strength. He managed to reach the edge of the platform, which all participants had to jump onto. Everything indicated that Song Qingying held no grudge against Song Chu. Elder Song Changqing was pleased that his grandchildren were acting together. One Chu Cheng instinctively felt meanness on the part of Song Qingying. Song Chu seems to have completely trusted his vile brother. The competition continued. All the lions fought in the arena in order to move further along the obstacle course. The Lion King was also among the participants in the battle. Song Chu, choosing a good moment, decided to sneak past everyone and come forward while they were fighting. Observers from the stands noticed that Song Chu managed to get ahead. Elder Song Chongqing rejoiced at the success. Xia Bei believed in real chances to win a lot of money, and Chu Cheng thought something was wrong. But Huang Shishun noticed Song Chu's cunning move and rushed after him. Song Chu could not stop. It was necessary to push off well and climb up the wall, although the King of Lions was already on his heels. He climbed a tall wall. There was only water behind her, it was easy to fall. Song Qingying, meanwhile, said that he would take care of the Lion King and let Song Chu continue his overcoming. Song Qingying encouraged Song Chu to jump quickly. Song Chu jumped, breaking the depths under the gongs. Song Qingying helped his brother again. Song Qingying needed only this. He quietly removed a needle from under his suit. The power of the ice-poisonous needle immediately began to affect Song Chu. He had to balance on high pillars and not fall into the water. However, suddenly Song Chu was overcome by a strange, paralyzing wave. He stopped and could no longer move. The partner who was in the role of the hind legs of the lion suit was alarmed. What is happening to Song Chu? Song Sanyang and Song Yan immediately screamed, watching that something incomprehensible was happening to Song Chu. Song Muyang gloatingly noted to himself that the power of the needle is great. It will paralyze movements. Song Chu will fall into the water, will not be able to swim, and will choke. What happened the next minute? Song Chu limply flew down from the pillar. Song Yan had only to watch as her husband was suddenly swept away from his place as if by a typhoon. Chu Cheng overcame the water barrier in a couple of short leaps. Rushing towards the falling Song Chu, he caught him on his shoulder when he was about to fall into the water, and they soared up. With 2 short leaps, Chu Cheng, with Song Chu on his shoulder, found himself at the top of the obstacle wall. They landed on the ground with lightning speed. The audience gasped in excitement. Song Muyang's plan failed. The spectators were raging. No one understood how this happened. Just Chu Cheng was sitting here, and a couple of moments later, he was already carrying the unconscious body of Song Chu. Chu Cheng appeared with a limp Song Chu in front of Huang Jianghong and stated that a forbidden weapon was used against Song Chu. Let people go and check. Huang Jianghong was stunned. A hidden weapon in his competition? He yelled furiously, wanting to know who dared to break the rules of the Huang family's competition. Huang Jianghong announced that the surveillance cameras showed that Song Chu had a wound on his arm, but who inflicted this wound on him was not visible. Song Qingying was sure that no one would figure him out. The surveillance cameras were aimed at Song Chu. The poison of the ice needle disappears almost immediately. Song Chu came to his senses on Chu Cheng's shoulder. He wondered why he was in such a state. Chu Cheng explained to him that they were trying to poison him. Song Chu's partner, hearing about the poison, immediately took off. In vain, Song Chu tried to stop him, although the competition was not yet over. Looks like Song Chu will be disqualified for not having a partner. However, Chu Cheng entered the game. He approached Mr. Huang Jianghong with a request to take part in the competition as a partner for Song Chu. Huang Jianghong judged that it would be fair and allowed him to participate. Chu Cheng stood forward, putting the tiger head on himself. Song Chu was worried whether he even knew what lion dance was. However, Chu Cheng waved it off and nonchalantly said that he had seen this on TV. Ye Xiao gloated. Where has it been seen that Chu Cheng became the head of a lion? It was clear that this was a loss. Song Qingying did not give up, even if some son-in-law of the Song family entered the game. But he could defeat a dozen of them. The lions rushed to overcome obstacles. Song Qingying planned to anger all the members so that they would get rid of Chu Cheng themselves. A crowd of rivals rushed towards the lions Song Chu and Chu Cheng. Let Song Chu not be afraid. Chu Cheng knew how to handle such situations. The next moment, Chu Cheng rushed into battle, scattering his opponents to the sides, some into the water, some onto the ground. They were the only ones left on the obstacle wall. Chu Cheng at the head of the lion and Song Chu at the feet of the lion. The stands became noisy. Ye Xiao and all his minions were speechless and could only watch what was happening. Chu Cheng was definitely one of the magicians. Xia Bei rejoiced and shouted words of encouragement to Chu Cheng. The magician began to participate in competitions. This could lead to unforeseen consequences. Bao Hai ordered to call all the lions and not let Chu Cheng make any progress at all costs. Lion figures flew towards Chu Cheng and Song Chu with terrible force. The competition began to develop into something more dangerous. Song Chu backed away. Chu Cheng was not afraid of such people. He did not fight with such people. He took a stance and launched a strike. However, he missed, but this did not upset him at all, but rather spurred him on. The battle would be exciting and interesting. The lions were advancing, and they no longer looked like peaceful marathon participants. If Chu Cheng thought that he was omnipotent and could frighten the young animals with his tricks, then he would have to try to survive against seasoned lions. Song Chu was seriously afraid. The strongest of the lions after the king of lions were now against them. It was impossible to deal with him simply by brute force. Bao Hai wanted to earn some money, judging by the way he acted. The Lion King was already at the finish line and was waiting for his only opponent to fight in the final battle. But the lions planned to prevent Chu Cheng from reaching the finals. Song Chu suggested surrendering. They had already gotten very far compared to what had happened in previous years. Chu Cheng was not at all afraid, but was ready to take the fight, provided that Song Chu would hold the lion for him and hold on tight. Chu Cheng grabbed the head of the lion suit and prepared for further combat with his opponents. Song Chu felt that he was torn off the ground with terrible force. Chu Cheng sharply spun the lion suit, thereby reaching each of the participants on their pillars, causing them to lose their balance and begin to fall into the water. Song Chu was spinning in a frantic whirlpool at the feet of a lion. The opponents began to fall into the water along with their lion costumes. The stands screamed. Ye Xiao's company opened their mouths in shock. Xia Bei happily shouted out his utter delight to Chu Cheng. The sons-in-law were amazed at how Chu Cheng got so much strength, and Song Yan froze in place. Song Chu's admiration knew no bounds. All three lions were defeated, and he even suggested that they had a chance to win. He began to approach, jumping along the pillars. Suddenly, Chu Cheng was stung on the neck by something, causing him to become distracted. Song Qingying also suddenly felt his own needles in his hand. He was amazed. How could he get into himself? Song Sanyang, Song Chongqing, and Song Muyang jumped up from their seats. Song Muyang started yelling that hidden weapons were used against his dear son. Song Muyang began to accuse Chu Cheng of using weapons. The sons-in-law immediately began to assent to Song Muyang, seeking confirmation of their fears about the meanness of Chu Cheng. Song Yan couldn't believe it. Everyone began to draw Mr. Huang's attention to the fact that it was Chu Cheng who was violating the rules of the games. They demanded that he be punished to the fullest extent. Huang Jianghong believed everyone and began to be indignant and accused Chu Cheng of vilely using illegal methods. The guards immediately rushed towards Chu Cheng. Song Chu was afraid, and Chu Cheng was in no hurry to panic, because soon the real villain would reveal himself. Song Qingying at this time began to fully experience all the delights of his own poison, as he prepared a double dose for the hated Chu Cheng. Now he risked falling into the water and drowning. Song Qingying was rapidly losing strength, unable to help himself unless he immediately drank the antidote. He managed to get the antidote, but the forces rapidly leaving him did not give him a chance to use it. He had already begun to fall into the water when Chu Cheng flew up and grabbed him by the hand in which Song Qingying was unsteadily holding the bag of antidote. Song Qingying's hand with a pouch, which apparently contained an antidote, was clearly demonstrated to the public. If the public blamed Chu Cheng for using the poison, then where did Song Qingying have the antidote? There were some mysterious pills in the bag. This truth opened everyone's eyes to the fact that the real scoundrel is Song Qingying. Chu Cheng suggested that they verify this by looking at the surveillance cameras. There, Song Qingying was seen shooting needles at him, which bounced off him. The guard confirmed this to Huang Jianghong after reviewing the recording. Huang Jianghong threateningly turned to Song Muyang for an explanation. Song Muyang was terribly confused, not knowing what to say. Song Sanyang and Chung King entered the game. They could not understand how Song Muyang dared to use hidden weapons against his own relatives. Huang Jianghong gave his verdict. Song Muyang's family will be under strict supervision since they dared to use vile methods in competitions. Security began to lead the disgraced Song Muyang out to the indignant shouts of the public. Song Chu finally realized everything that had happened, and he could not believe that his own uncle could do this to him. And it turned out that Chu Cheng was right. Huang Jianghong ordered the competition to continue because the battle was not yet over. Unexpectedly for everyone, the Song family made it to the finals. Only the Lion King and the Lion of the Song family remained in the sports arena. Xiaobei rejoiced on the podium and asked Chu Cheng to stand and make them champions. Ye Xiao realized that the stakes had skyrocketed, and if Chu Cheng and Song Chu won, he would have to fork out a very large sum of money. The Lion King did not expect that he would have to fight a newcomer in the finals. Over the past 10 years, the king admitted that he had never seen such a thing, but he was determined not to give in, and the opponents in their grotesque costumes rushed into battle. The Lion King, being a seasoned participant, saw all the weaknesses of his opponent. Ye Xiao and his company perked up. It looks like the Lion King is living up to his title, and Chu Cheng will soon come to an end. Xiaobei did not understand why Chu Cheng gave up sharply against the background of the King of Lions. It seemed to the public that the King of Lions was clearly in the lead. His blows were clear and strong. One such blow sent Chu Cheng's lion mask flying to the side. Bao Hai, watching the fight and somewhat disappointed, had already noted that Chu Cheng's magic was not that strong since the Lion King was able to attack him. Well, apparently for Huang Jianghong the duel was over, and the Lion King reaffirmed his title. The Song family was able to achieve something almost incredible for themselves, to reach the finals. And although they were clearly the losers, their successful participation would have a positive effect on the family's rating. The Lion King stood victoriously over Chu Cheng's lion and suggested that they surrender and leave with dignity rather than be defeated in disgrace. Chu Cheng knelt in front of the audience, but this did not mean that he was defeated. Why did everyone suddenly decide that Chu Cheng's lion was running out of strength? Huang Jianghong was amazed because it seemed to him that Chu Cheng had no strength to continue the fight, and the winner was obvious. The King of Lions clearly had the advantage. Why did they have to continue the fight or surrender? Suddenly, the king sank to his knees in a fit of vague fatigue. The audience was buzzing, because none of them expected such a turn. Ye Xiao from the stands sincerely did not understand what was happening, why the Lion King seemed deflated. The Lion King looked pitiful, realizing that he could not continue any further. He was exhausted in the face of young and energetic rivals. From the outside, it would seem that the Lion King really threw Chu Cheng's lion away. In reality, this was not the case, and the Lion King himself was well aware of this. He never touched Chu Cheng. During the fight, his blows barely touched Chu Cheng, while at that time he put in all his strength. Chu Cheng, it seems, resorted to cunning and deliberately allegedly showed all his weak points so that the King of Lions would hit them, thereby wasting all his strength. Chu Cheng no longer looked defeated. He was pleased that the King of Lions finally saw through him, and he suggested that Song Chu take the opportunity to finish off the already exhausted Lion King, which Song Chu gladly did with a direct kick. The legendary king, who held this title for many years, fell into the water, struck by the youths. Xiaobei rejoiced at the victory of the Song family. Song Chu's last and such demonstrative blow completely discouraged Ye Xiao's company. They never expected that the Lion King would be defeated. Song Muyang, being imprisoned in a room with his offspring, also heard the rejoicing of the stands in honor of Song's victory. The stands chanted the names of Song Chu and Chu Cheng, completely delighted with the brilliant duel. Song Chongqing was taken aback, Song Sanyang froze at this turn of events. Grandfather Song shed a tear of happiness out of pride for his grandson. Both stood and enjoyed their moment of glory with everyone chanting. Both were pleased, especially Song Chu, who did not count on a victory, but in general on a worthy participation. Chu Cheng offered to show the stands the next miracle, calligraphy. They had this gift in store for the ceremony. Song Chu made a couple of quick lunges and grabbed the pom-pom that was attached to the red banner. The ribbon was untied, and the huge calligraphy was revealed for all to see. This spectacular gesture finally won the sympathy of the public. Everyone admired the beauty and wisdom of calligraphy. Huang Jianghong sat contentedly on his throne. He wanted to discuss the meaning of calligraphy with Chu Cheng after the ceremony was over. The stands whispered, because everyone knew what rumors were circulating about Chu Chen. He was a fool son-in-law. But here it turned out that he was not only a winner, but also a wise writer. Bao Hai spoke from the stands, loudly declaring that the calligraphy was not written by Chu Cheng. Let them look at the signature at the bottom of the calligraphy. It was written crookedly and askew, not matching the letter in calligraphy. It is obvious that Chu Cheng signed, but someone else wrote the calligraphy. Rumors and gossip spread in the hall about Chu Cheng's skills. The fool Chu Cheng apparently thought of signing his signature on someone else's creation. Xiaobei guessed what was going on here. Bao Hai simply decided to take revenge for the lost money. Song Yan was afraid of the same thing. This was Bao Hai's revenge. Huang Jianghong also wondered if this calligraphy was written by Chu Cheng because it represented the Huang family. It was not so important to him who exactly wrote these words, but still it was necessary to clarify the situation. Chu Cheng replied that he did not write this. Then why was the author's signature different? But Chu Cheng had no need to lie. Huang Jianghong gave Chu Cheng a chance to confess everything frankly. But if he didn't want to do it, then Huang Jianghong stopped being polite. He ordered the guards to lead Chu Cheng to him. Xiao and company rejoiced and mocked. The guards began to approach Chu Cheng, but he began to fly up sharply towards the red letter. The next moment, he tore off the festive ribbon and threw it on the floor. The spectators were perplexed by this act. Huang Jianghong shouted angrily, "How dare he tear down the calligraphy?" Ye Xiao and company were looking forward to Chu Cheng getting his way. Chu Cheng fell out of favor with Huang Jianghong and was ready to deal with him for disrespect. He threatened to break off relations between Huang and Song. The sons-in-law immediately became worried that Chu Cheng would ruin the already precarious position of the Song family. Xiaobei asked Chu Cheng to change his mind, because they still needed to cooperate with the Huang family, since they bought an office in Jintang. Everyone saw that Chu Cheng was crumpling the beautiful calligraphy, turning it into nothingness. He carelessly threw the piece of paper away and declared that if they did not believe him, then they should provide him with brushes and ink for a new calligraphy. Huang Jianghong ordered that Chu Cheng be given brushes and paper, since he wanted to prove his skills. But if Chu Cheng turns out to be a mere talker, then Huang Jianghong vowed to use the full power of the Huang family to destroy the Song family. Bao Hai arrogantly stated that if Chu Cheng really wrote calligraphy no worse than this, then he would gladly kneel down in front of him and apologize. Chu Cheng resolutely took the brushes and paper in his hands and agreed to an agreement with Bao Hai. He skillfully prepared a red canvas on which he planned to write his hieroglyphs, and he began to demonstrate the skill of calligraphic writing to everyone present. And soon, dashingly twirling his brushes in his hand, he invited Mr. Huang to look at the new calligraphy. The calligraphy turned out to be unusually beautiful and masterful, even better than the previous one. And besides, this time Chu Cheng has already signed his authorship properly, so that no one has any questions or complaints. Huang Jianghong began to evaluate the new calligraphy. Song Yan was surprised by more and more new discoveries about her husband, and Xiaobei noted that he thought that Chu Cheng was just lucky for the first time. Bao Hai desperately did not understand how Chu Cheng was so lucky. Xiaobei did not doubt his friend and supported him in every possible way. Among other things, Chu Cheng now saved their situation with affairs in Jintang. Huang Jianghong was amazed not only by the beauty of the writing, but also by the wisdom contained in the words. The current letter spoke of the desire to take over the whole world. Huang Jianghong admitted that he was wrong and hastened to humbly apologize to the young man. He reminded his incompetent grandson Bao Hai to do the same, who promised to apologize if Chu Cheng could write such things. Bao Hai shuddered because he definitely did not expect this. Not only did he lose money to him, but he also had to kneel. He had no intention of doing this and tried to bargain with Chu Cheng, promising to help out next time. However, Chu Cheng remembered all the past grievances to him. Bao Hai, with a shameful appearance in front of the entire public, knelt down in front of the hated Chu Cheng. Yeshao and company did not believe in what they saw. Bao Hai is kneeling in front of Chu Cheng. Huang Zhanghong invited the entire Song family to a dinner party at his mansion as an apology. Song Yan and Xiaobei immediately noted that this was a great chance to meet the local elite at dinner. Chu Cheng complacently accepted the invitation of the head of Huang. It dawned on Xiaobei that the million he had bet on Chu Cheng and Song Chu had now turned into 20 million. The entire Song family stood in front of Chu Cheng. Song Sanyang generously began to thank Chu Cheng for taking the trouble away from their family. Song Chongqing did not expect meanness from his son Song Muyang. He excommunicated them from the Song family. He yelled at the rest of the Song family to also apologize to Chu Cheng for treating him unfairly all these years. The family did not apologize to him very well. He just brushed them off. Because there was no point in being offended, he was one family after all. Bao Hai, who was standing nearby, listened to all this and was filled with anger. He vowed to make sure that Chu Cheng would not return alive from this dinner. Cars were already arriving at the Huang family mansion. All the large and influential families of the city were expected to arrive at the evening. Toasts were heard every now and then at the tables. It was unusually quiet at Song's table, with only Chu Cheng devouring food on both cheeks. No one came to the Song family's table, although there was a lively atmosphere around. There was a time when the Song family was held in high regard by everyone, but now no one came to exchange pleasantries. The waitress came over and asked Chu Cheng to come with her because someone wanted to see him. Chu Cheng did just that. They left the hall and Chu Cheng followed the waitress. When they entered a dark hall, she suddenly lost consciousness and fell to the floor. Chu Cheng immediately realized that there was something unclean here, similar to the actions of a magician. But he turned to the darkness and ordered whoever was hiding there to come out and show himself. Some unkind voice was heard, accusing Chu Cheng of offending Bao Hai, and now let him prepare right now, because Chu Cheng had already entered the magic circle. Chu Cheng was not at all afraid, but only mockingly asked if it was that notorious mentor of Bao Hai. Chu Cheng was not afraid of the magic circle, but instead stomped his foot inside the circle. Suddenly, someone who was out of sight of the circle received a blow to the face. He turned out to be a little man in a black robe. He guessed that it was a Qian Kun blow that destroyed the magic ring. He wondered who Chu Cheng was since he knew the tricks against it. Chu Cheng was seriously angry and had no intention of introducing himself to him. He arrogantly bowed to the man in black clothes and invited him to tell him his bazi, year of birth, for drawing up a horoscope, so that if he was so interested, whoever was so interested could read it himself. The man knew that no one in his right mind would tell such information. But Chu Cheng was not joking and ordered him to listen carefully to his bazi. And when the magician heard this, he fell to his knees in shock. Sometime later, Bao Hai headed towards the room where the magician was supposed to lure Chu Cheng. He hoped that he was already on his knees and asking for forgiveness. With a satisfied expression, he began to wonder whether his mentor had coped with it. However, when he entered the dark room, he found his magician in a strange position. The mentor was clearly not okay. He angrily slapped his student Bao Hai in the face, calling him stupid. Did Bao Hai know who he dared to contact in the person of Chu Cheng? He had to ask Chu Cheng for forgiveness at all costs. Otherwise, they would be expelled from the magician sect. When the magician recognized Chu Cheng's bazi, he was simply amazed at the strength of those who guarded him. And apparently, he could be a follower of the ninth heaven. This meant only one thing. Chu Cheng was definitely not an ordinary person, but did not occupy the last place in their hierarchy. Song Yan carefully asked if Chu Cheng was okay. He reassured her. Ye Xiao cast vindictive glances towards the Song family, who seemed superfluous at this celebration of life. He noticed that Bao Hai, taking a glass, headed towards them, apparently in order to humiliate or somehow besiege Chu Cheng. Bao Hai actually walked towards the Song family table quite decisively. Then the unexpected happened. Bao Hai knelt down and raised his glass to Chu Cheng, apologizing for all his unfair words and actions towards him. Ye Xiao's company was simply speechless. Chu Cheng raised his glass and said that he did not hold a grudge against young Bao Hai, noting to himself that Bao Hai's apology was not sincere, but was dictated only by fear of the teacher. They drank, and Bao Hai began to brotherly thank Chu Cheng for his generosity. Ye Xiao watched Bao Hai's behavior in amazement, not understanding how he could not only apologize, but also kneel down. Bao Hai then invited Chu Cheng to come to Huang Zhanghong's desk. At the table of the head of the Huang family sat all the cream of society. Chu Cheng and Bao Hai walked towards them. Huang Zhanghong wanted to see Chu Cheng to once again thank him for his noble behavior today, and promised to fulfill any of his requests. Yeshao and his company gnashed their teeth in weakness, realizing that Chu Cheng would now ascend to the skies. Chu Cheng noted that old man Huang Jianghong did not look very good. He admitted that he was suffering from an old illness that quickly goes away if you don't drink alcohol. Chu Cheng closed his eyes as if he was thinking about his desire. His wish stunned everyone at the table. He wished that Mr. Huang Jianghong would drink wine every day. The head of the Qian family was the first to be indignant. Everyone knew very well about Huang Jianghong's illness, and how could Chu Cheng wish such a thing on him? But Chu Cheng explained that he would prepare a special healing tincture for Huang Jianghong, which would relieve him of his illness in 7 days. Head Qian was immediately indignant, because his pharmaceutical company had been looking for a cure for Huang Jianghong's illness for many years and could not offer anything. In addition, Mr. Qian harbored a grudge against Chu Cheng for beating his son Qian Bushao, so he will not see business in Jintang. Chu Cheng proposed a condition. If his medicine cures Mr. Huang Jianghong, they can continue the business. Mr. Qian, in turn, set the following condition. If within 3 months Chu Cheng fulfills his promise, he will personally apologize. Otherwise, Chu Cheng will have to leave Changcheng forever. Chu Cheng was pleased and left the company at the table. He had to prepare a potion for Huang Jianghong, and he had to remember to take the tincture every day. Song Yan, sitting at the table and watching the carefree Chu Cheng, thought, Qian Company was a pharmaceutical giant, and Huang Jianghong's illness has practically no cure. What is Chu Cheng thinking? Late in the evening, Chu Cheng went to the Star Placer store. He wanted to buy a couple of ingredients to prepare medicine for Mr. Huang. Chu Cheng was met by the shop owner, old man Huang Xian. Chu Cheng wanted to purchase the ingredients to make the 7-star talisman. Huang Xian saw Chu Cheng at an evening with Mr. Huang and asked if he knew what Huang was sick with, since he wanted to cure him of his illness with a talisman. Chu Cheng innocently replied that there is no disease, but there is black magic. The old man was surprised because witchcraft is very difficult to recognize. No matter how difficult or simple it was, Chu Cheng wanted to heal Huang because he considered it his duty. The old man did not believe Chu Cheng and called him a rogue, because only the followers of the 9th heaven had the right to take responsibility for eradicating the black evil. He grabbed Chu Cheng's hand, intending to see what was written on his palm. In amazement, he began to study the lines on Chu Cheng's hand. After a moment of astonished study, he fell to his knees in front of the 9th heaven disciple. Chu Cheng held the old man from falling to his knees and replied that not only was he a student, but he was also a follower brother of the head teacher of the star scattering, Luo Yun. The old man couldn't believe his luck, so Chu Cheng was really their teacher? He reverently asked Chu Cheng to name which of the 9 branches he had learned. Chu Cheng stunned him with the answer that he had learned all 9 branches. Old man Huang Xian fell to the ground in front of him. For an ordinary person to know 1 branch is a rare success. But here, all 9 branches. Uyu's granddaughter appeared from the darkness, awakened by their conversations. She was amazed to see her grandfather bowing to Chu Cheng, calling him teacher. The girl did not understand why he was on his knees in front of the arrogant youth. She thought that her grandfather was having a stroke. Chu Cheng smugly noted to himself that he was just a high-flying bird. The next day, Song Chu was heading to the Huang family's house. She and Chu Cheng kept in touch by phone. Song Chu had already entered the courtyard of the house. His mission was to deliver the tincture to Mr. Huang. Suddenly, his path was blocked by security. A young man came out to them and asked if Song Chu had brought the tincture from Chu Cheng. Song Chu friendly pointed at the keg of tincture to this guy and asked him to give it to Mr. Huang Jianghong. However, the next moment, Song Chu received a blow from him. The guy took the keg from Song Chu, arrogantly declaring that everyone already knows about Huang's illness to give him such swill. Song Chu did not understand what they were going to do with the tincture, but the guards began to beat Song Chu without giving him a chance to somehow explain himself. They twisted his hands and forced him to his knees. The guy arrogantly turned to Song Chu, opening the keg. According to him, his grandfather is not a guinea pig to test all sorts of crap on him. The guards opened Song Chu's mouth, and the guy ominously approached him with a keg. He forcibly began to pour the tincture into the mouth of poor Song Chu. While Song Chu was choking on the tincture, the guy ordered the guards to finish him off. The guards began to beat Song Chu, delivering blow after blow. A few hours later, Song Chu lay in bed in the Song house. He was beaten and unable to get up. The Song family gathered around the victim's bed. It turned out that Huang's grandson, Huang Yushu, ordered him to be beaten. It was unclear why, since Song Chu only brought medicine. The mother of the family spoke out. She could not tolerate such an attitude towards her son and wanted to demand an explanation from the Huang family. Song Sanyang, realizing that the Huang family was a big fish, began to persuade his wife to calm down and simply swallow the insult. Song Yan was worried that the Huang family could easily harm them. Chu Cheng entered the room with a menacing look. Chu Cheng did not intend to forgive them for this act. He intended to go to their house and take revenge. However, the family protested because she was setting them all up. Lin Shinping grabbed Chu Cheng by the shoulder, pushing him away from his decision to go for revenge. Chu Cheng was pretty tired of this idiot with his eternal snot, so Chu Cheng hit him in the face so that he would back off with his advice. Lin couldn't find anything to answer to the departing Chu Cheng. Only Song Yan supported her husband. She just asked me to come back as soon as possible. He looked at her and promised to return. In the evening, a thunderstorm raged. It was raining at Wan's family's house when they noticed someone had sneaked in. The grandson of Huang Baohai came out to meet the one who dared to enter the territory of the mansion. It was Chu Cheng who simply scattered all the guards in the courtyard who were trying to stop him in one fell swoop. Chu Cheng looked closely at the young man, asking if he was the same Huang Yushu. Yushu was seriously surprised when he realized that this was the same Chu Cheng from the Song family. He did not answer, but only hit him in the face. But he didn't stop there. With a direct kick, he threw him onto the wet asphalt. Chu Cheng then took out some container with unknown contents. He grabbed the frightened youth by the face. Instantly, the contents of the container splashed into Huang Yushu's mouth. Well, this was just a counter move from Chu Cheng. People appeared in the courtyard and rushed to Chu Cheng with the order to release the young master. He was surrounded by a team of no less than 10 fighters. They were said to be warriors of the Black Light, trained to kill. Huang Yushu ordered them to break Chu Cheng's legs. The warriors rushed towards Chu Cheng. Meanwhile, at the gate of Huan's house, several cars suddenly braked. A worried Song Sanyang jumped out of the car, shouting at Chu Cheng not to hurt anyone. He rushed to the gate with the intention of taking Chu Cheng away from there. Song Sanyang knew that Chu Cheng was a good fighter, but the Huang family had Black Light warriors. Anyone who met the warriors of the Black Light on their way might never return home. The Black Light warriors are an ancient force that has been passed down from generation to generation in the Huang family. Song Sanyang tried to see what was happening behind the gate. He owed Chu Cheng the life of his son, so no matter how things turned out, he was obliged to take Chu Cheng with him. In the worst-case scenario, he would have to take care of Chu Chen for the rest of his life. Song Sanyang opened the gates, announcing his arrival. A strange picture appeared before his eyes. Defeated Black Light warriors were lying all over the courtyard, and in the middle of it stood Chu Cheng, alive and unharmed. He was now holding one of these notorious invincible warriors by the collar. Song Sanyang could hardly say anything to this. Chu Cheng asked why Song Sanyang came here. Is it to blame someone for his son? Song Sanyang came to his senses, and taking Chu Cheng by the hand, pulled him away from here until no one saw them. The car took off with a squeal. Song Sanyang grabbed the steering wheel with a death grip. He understood that the answer from the Huang family would not be long in coming, despite the fact that Chu Cheng had scattered all the Black Light warriors. Chu Cheng began to explain that he simply couldn't hold back when he saw what they did to Song Chu. Song Sanyang suddenly said that Chu Cheng did the right thing, because today he really defended the honor of the Song family. Chu Cheng did not find what to answer, because probably for the first time in all this time, Song Sanyang did not reproach his actions. Song Sanyang had to thank Chu Cheng on behalf of Song Chu. When they returned home, everyone was amazed. Until recently, they did not believe that Chu Cheng would actually go to the Huang family's house. However, he not only showed up there, but also beat everyone up. Song Sanyang thought hard about the fact that they should now unite to resist the imminent revenge of the Huang family. Song Chongqing entered the house and sadly declared that he could no longer expect an answer from the Huang family. He had just received a message that the Huang family had declared war on the Song family. The sons-in-law and their wives immediately perked up. The butler helped the old man Song Chongqing to sit in a chair, and he continued to announce the sad news. Now all partner companies urgently began to revoke their agreements with the Song family. They immediately began to suffer huge losses. Ling Xinping looked back towards the calm Chu Cheng, wondering if he was happy with the consequences of his action. Lin Xinping proposed taking emergency measures against Chu Cheng and breaking all ties with him. Zhou Qian suggested that Chu Cheng go to the Huang family and ask for forgiveness for his actions. The wives supported this proposal with nods. However, Chu Cheng very calmly asked no one to worry about anything. They would be able to survive this crisis. Moreover, Chu Cheng was confident that this situation would help the Song family return to its former pedestal. The sons-in-law attacked Chu Cheng with renewed vigor and began to persuade Song Sanyang to immediately expel him. Song Ruhai interrupted them, saying that Mr. Huang's grandson, Huang Yushu, was calling. Song Chongqing, preparing for a shameful conversation, asked to turn on the speakerphone. Huang Yushu spoke arrogantly, asking if the Song family had felt the full force of their blockade against them. He lay on the bed in Huang's house, his wounds were treated by nurses, and he arrogantly declared that the situation could only be saved by the Song family, apologizing to the Huang family in front of the entire city. The condition was clear, and in response, Huang Yushu promised to immediately withdraw all accusations against Song. The sons-in-law and wives immediately perked up, because all they had to do was apologize and everything would be settled. Chu Cheng answered the phone from Song Ruhai. He decisively and brazenly replied to Huang Yushu that he should be the first to apologize to their family, since it was he who started this fight. Otherwise, let him blame himself. After these words, Chu Cheng pressed the end call. The sons-in-law and wives were immediately indignant because Chu Cheng acted extremely wrongly from their point of view. Huang Yushu, with a satisfied grin, asked his minions to continue pressure on the Song family until they surrender. Rumors began to spread throughout the city about a declared feud between the Huang family and the Song family. People read the news on their phones, not understanding how a small family like the Song family could cross the path of a powerful family like the Huang family. Ye Xiao and his usual company were already celebrating this event in full, burying Chu Cheng alive. The next morning, Song Sanyang and Su Yuexian watched as their daughters and their sons-in-law piled into a car and fled the house. The spouses could only stand and watch as their closest people abandoned them in such a difficult life situation. 3 days later, the situation only worsened. Song Chongqing was clutching his head because now all of their accounts were blocked. Song Sanyang, Su Yuexian, and Song Yan watched the poor old man's experiences. However, Xiaobei suddenly intervened and gave Song Changqing a credit card with a tidy account that Song Changqing could use until things got better. Chu Cheng asked how much this money would last. Song Chongqing said with regret that it would not be more than 3 days. Chu Cheng firmly stated that 3 days would be enough to hold out. Huang's mansion in 3 days. Huang Jianghong ate dinner but had no appetite. He couldn't even look at the food because of his illness. But he remembered Chu Cheng's tincture. Huang Jianghong was not eager to drink it, but he promised the guy to do it. Huang Jianghong finally took up the glass with the tincture. A moment later, Huang Jianghong felt wonderful relief from drinking the tincture. In the morning, Huang Yushu played golf relaxingly on the green field. Huang Jianghong was heading towards him. He immediately attacked Huang Yushu with a claim. Why was the tincture that Chu Cheng gave for treatment so little? However, he confidently declared that grandfather should not drink this low-grade swill. Huang Yushu admitted that out of concern for the sick old man, he poured out part of the tincture so that he would not have to drink it. Huang Jianghong immediately slapped his grandson in the face, calling him a fool. He ordered Huang Yushu to put his pride aside and go to Chu Cheng to ask for more tincture, because it worked wonders for his health. Huang Yushu began to whine that he could not do this, because he had declared a boycott of the Song family. Huang Jianghong was very surprised, because he had no idea what happened. Huang Yushu opened his shirt in front of his grandfather and demonstrated the beatings that Chu Cheng inflicted on him. Without understanding what and why, Huang Jianghong immediately began blaming Chu Cheng for the beatings. The calls did not stop in the Song house. Now they called from the Huang's house. Ruhai announced that they wanted to talk to Chu Cheng. He answered the phone. Who could it be? Huang Jianghong immediately began to blame Chu Cheng for how he could beat Huang Yushu. The latter stood behind his grandfather and chuckled quietly at the game he had started. Huang Jianghong ordered Chu Cheng to immediately come and apologize and also grab the tincture. Only then will he remove all restrictions from the family. Chu Cheng, without hesitation, stated in his repertoire that it was they who should apologize for being the first to start a fight, and they would receive the tincture only on one condition. The condition was simple. Chu Cheng wanted the Huang family to apologize to the Song family in front of the entire city. Huang Jianghong turned to his grandson in amazement and conveyed Chu Cheng's words that it was Huang Yushu who started the fight first. He sourly made an excuse that he beat Song Chu only because it seemed suspicious to him that a stranger had brought a strange potion for his grandfather. Huang Jianghong hit his grandson in the face for the second time, calling him an imbecile. Song Sanyang, being at a crossroads, was afraid of such decisive steps by Chu Cheng towards the Huang family. The same one was 100% confident in his actions and promised that Song Sanyang would soon see for himself how in a couple of hours the Huang family would come to apologize to their house. Huang Jianghong was still the leader of the most powerful family in the city. He didn't want to come and apologize to the Song family for some minor fight in order to be given a tincture. Another way should have been found, so as not to humiliate myself in front of the Song family. Huang Jianghong ordered his servant to bring old man Huang Xian from the Star Placer store to him. An hour later, however, he was informed that old man Huang Xian had flatly refused to come, to Huang Jianghong's great surprise. The old man also conveyed that the Huang family had messed with the wrong person, and they had better forget about their pride and apologize to Chu Cheng. Huang Jianghong was indignant. How could such a small family demand an apology? However, the next moment he was overcome by severe pain. This time the attack was especially intense, and he was writhing in pain. The servant hurriedly continued that old man Huang Xian conveyed that the disease would progress and bring him to his deathbed. Huang Jianghong could only be surprised at this situation. Song Chang King sat in the Song household and checked the balance of their family's account every hour. The money was about to run out if the Huang family did not lift the restrictions. They were all in danger of complete bankruptcy. Song Yan began to worry more and more and asked Chu Cheng whether he was sure that he was right. But he only smiled mysteriously, foreshadowing good events. Song Ruhai ran into the living room and reported stunning news. Huang's grandson and a bunch of reporters were at the gate. Song Sanyang and Su Yuexian clutched their hearts, guessing that the Huang family had come to seal the house under the clicks of reporters' cameras. However, Song Ruhai replied that they were reporting live what was happening at the gate. Huang Yushu was indeed near the gate. Unexpectedly, he was on his knees and live apologizing to Chu Cheng. At this time, Ye Xiao was celebrating his victory over the Song family in one of the bars in the city. Finally, the Song family got what they deserved. Suddenly, Dong Rong appeared and handed him a phone on which something incredible was happening live. Ye Xiao stared at the screen, not believing his eyes. Huang Yushu was apologizing on live television. The chats were buzzing with this news. No one expected such a gesture from the Huang family, and no one expected the Song family to be so steadfast. Ye Xiao spat out his drink in surprise. At that time, Huang Yushu apologized to Chu Cheng. He begged to forgive him and give the tincture to his grandfather. In return, they promised to lift all sanctions from the Song family and compensate for all losses. He banged his head on the ground as the press cameras clicked incessantly. The gate creaked, and Chu Cheng came out to the press and Huang Yushu with a pot of tincture under the amazed looks of the Song family. He was ready to forgive Huang Yushu and hand over the medicine. That same evening, the news of the Huang family's apology to the Song family caused a sensation throughout Changcheng. This news was discussed everywhere. This could not have been possible at all, but it turned out to be true. All canceled contracts were restored, and Ye Xiao and Dong Rong personally came to ask for renewed cooperation with Chu Cheng. Huang Jianghong rapidly recovered after taking a sufficient amount of the potion. Chu Cheng sipped his tea peacefully. His mother-in-law, who had previously treated him with disdain, now never tired of bringing him tea every time he finished his cup. Song Yan watched with satisfaction such positive changes in their family. The traitorous sons-in-law and their wives returned with their tails between their legs. Song Sanyang reproached them for abandoning their family in the darkest period, and now resorting to everything ready-made. Song Sanyang drove them away under the pleased gaze of Chu Cheng. Who's the idiot brother-in-law now? A week after all these events, Song Chu trained furiously and persistently in the local park. Chu Cheng noticed him. Song Chu was annoyed. The thing was that there was a man in the city named Zhao Shan. This was a famous boxer in Changcheng who had already defeated everyone he knew in the city. Zhao Shan stated that their Nanquan fighting style sucked, and Song Chu intended to challenge him to a fight to uphold his honor. Chu Cheng asked what Song Chu was working on now. He was practicing the 13-fist complex. Chu Cheng responded a little mockingly that it really sucked, to Song Chu's surprise. Chu Cheng stated that he would now show Song Chu a couple of techniques. Song Chu didn't think that he also understood fist fighting. Chu Cheng stated quite confidently that this was true. Then he swung sharply and effectively in the style of an ancient martial art. The rock that Chu Cheng loaded into remained intact and unharmed. Song Chu was not particularly impressed with Chu Cheng's fighting skills. However, Chu Cheng asked him not to rush to conclusions and go see what happened to the rock on the other side. Song Chu did just that. He touched the rock and heard a strange sound inside it. The next moment, A piece of rock simply fell out of the stone block, revealing a view of the lake. Song Chu crouched down from such power of the ancient art of fist fighting. Chu Cheng advised Song Chu to learn a couple of his techniques to be sure to defeat Zhao Shan. An impressive-looking bald fighter stood in the boxing ring. In front of him in the ring, his opponent lay unconscious. The spectators chanted to the defeated man that he was a weakling. This winner was Zhao Shan, who arrogantly placed his foot on the defeated fighter. The strongest boxer from the Huang family was defeated. Who else would want to fight Zhao Shan after this? The spectators in the hall also noted the fact that the strongest boxer in the city was defeated by a newcomer. It's unlikely that anyone will want to fight him. Chu Cheng and Song Chu appeared from the darkness of the steps, who declared in front of everyone that he would be the one with whom Zhao Shan would fight. Chu Cheng duly recommended young Song Chu as a representative of Jing Yi, the Association of Refined Martial Arts, and said that he would fight Zhao Shan. Zhao Shan looked at Song Chu from the ring. He began to refuse to fight Song Chu because, in his opinion, Song Chu looked too young and it was not in his rules to beat children. Besides, Song Chu would simply continue to disgrace himself with his Nanquan style. Chu Cheng came closer and saw in Zhao Shan the same boxer whom he met on the street then, and gave the contacts of Dong Rong, whom he beat like a cutlet. Chu Cheng greeted him and reminded him of himself, asking the big man to fight Song Chu, since Chu Cheng had once helped him. Zhao Shan also remembered Chu Cheng. He agreed to fight, but fighting with the boy was boring, and he suggested adding fun to the fight. He invited the audience to bet that the boxer would be the first to break the boy. The crowd got excited, and bets started pouring in. Chu Cheng also bet, but he bet on Song Chu because he slyly noticed that he would knock out Zhao Shan. The spectators betting on Zhao Shan looked at Chu Cheng in surprise. They immediately laughed at him because of his strange bet on the baby. It looks like this man just wanted to throw money away. Zhao Shan was not against Chu Cheng's bet, it was even fun. Song Chu was no longer so confident in himself, but Chu Cheng simply asked him to use the technique he taught to Song Chu. Song Chu climbed into the ring. The fighters stood opposite each other. Song Chu stood in front of this experienced fighter, and his confidence diminished. Chu Cheng showed him a technique that worked, but Song Chu only used it once, so he wasn't sure whether he could hold his own in the face of his opponent. Zhao Shan did not hesitate and immediately launched an attack on Song Chu. Because so many spectators had bet on him, it was impossible to disappoint them, and the first blow fell exactly on Song Chu. However, he managed to escape the blow, noting how strong it was. Zhao Shan advanced again, distributing blows right and left. Chu Cheng encouraged him from the side and persuaded him not to be afraid and not to run away, but to defend himself. Zhao Shan jumped up sharply and rushed towards Song Chu with threats. It was too late to run away from the blow. It was time to use a counter-strike from the ancient art taught by Chu Cheng. Chu Cheng, without doubting Song Chu, watched him, and the spectators in the hall were already mentally burying Song Chu. However, something unexpected began to happen in the ring, because most likely, it was Zhao Shan who would need ambulance, since his body was now flying limply in the air from Song Chu's blow.